No.
Okay, all right, well, that candy's being passed around. Today is 2018 election of chair and vice chair. Because we have a small commission this morning,
Everybody has to do,
this afternoon, because people can't get through to be here,
pass it on.
we're going to postpone that for 2 weeks.
I think that's a very good idea.
And item B is appointment of consent review representatives and subcommittees. I'm also going to continue that for 2 weeks so that we can have a full commission. And
Could we ask staff, Mr. Chair, could we ask staff to send out who's on what?
Absolutely, Commissioner Reyes.
yeah, yes. And although it's not on the agenda, I'm going to welcome our new Commissioner, Ed Lenvik.
Thank you.
Good to have you, Ed.
Appreciate that.
And I'm going to move on to public comment. I have a couple of slips here. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled for this agenda for a public discussion. And the first item has no name, but I will... Who submitted these?
Commissioner Mahan, the only one for public comment right now is, I believe, Francesca Gall.
Okay.
Paulina Khan.
Tom?
Ms. Khan.
Signorelli?
No, that's.
You're Tom?
I'm Tom. I'm here for Diana Road.
Oh, excuse me. I see. Item 2. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Please.
Excuse me. Yeah. So why don't you come up and address us? Oh, here it is on the back. Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paulina Khan. I live in Mission Canyon. I have written a historic landmark nomination for the corridor in front of the Mission from Laguna Street to Foothill Road, and it includes the 2200 block of Alameda Padre Serra and 2200 block of Mission Ridge Road and West Mountain Drive, the 0 to 200 block where the aqueduct goes. This is the document. It is rather large. The same document has been given to the County Historic Landmarks Commission for their perusal and judgment, you might say. What happens in the city affects the county, and what happens in the county affects the city in terms of historic resources. So I hope there will be some sort of sensitivity in both directions. This is a historic site with many historic features that are already landmarks. This particular nomination is being done to protect the current landmarks and to augment the landmark areas. It's a historic cultural landscape, historic roads, and historic features. As I said, both in the city and the county jurisdiction. I have, Nicole Hernandez already has the document, and it will be presented, if it has not already, to the subcommittee. I have for the subcommittee, because it's such a long document, I have for the subcommittee a synopsis so that they can see readily where, why the area should be a landmark and where they will find it in the document, and a summary of how the area meets the various landmark criteria. And the page numbers, again, because that's not right in the front of the book, it's towards the end, and so they might not see it and wonder what this is all about. So I thought I would leave the 4 copies of this 2-page, 1.5-page synopsis with you for the subcommittee to use. My second item, which is related to this, has to do with signage. I'm very concerned about signage in historic areas, particularly by the Mission. And I don't mean to point out a particular institution, but I am going to. There are 5 signs in the 400 block of East Los Olivos Street, right in front of the Old Mission and east of the Old Mission, to the Museum of Natural History. I feel that 1 sign ought to be enough, and at the most 2. And if there are going to be two, then the Botanic Garden should be included, since that too is a nonprofit institution and it is a historic landmark. So thank you very much. I think that is all I have for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you give these things to staff, and
Yes.
they'll get processed? Thank you very much.
I would like a copy myself. Okay.
Okay, I have the 4
Pass
copies
that
to go
down,
with
Ed.
the 4 landmarks nominations. that
Okay,
you
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, that's public comment. I would like to make a public comment and just on the behalf of the commission to extend our sympathy to our neighbors in Montecito for their both loss of life and loss of homes and property. We feel very, very sad and sorry about this terrible event that happened yesterday.
Ongoing tragedy.
Tragedy, thank you, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission, December 13th.
Second,
Okay, are there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
page,
Mr. Drury,
page 2,
page,
under announcements, on item 4, Ms. Unzueta announced that due to a membership vacancy, that particular paragraph, I think that I suggested 6 months to a year of service, as opposed to trying to figure out what 2 months. You know, it just seems to me to be much more simple. I think, and I said that in the meeting, so that should be changed. I offered my services for that length of time, and that's under 4. Under 6, Commissioner Drury expressed concern about lengthy complex projects being heard at the end of long meetings and requested that they be placed earlier on the agenda. I would like that requested changed to suggested, because I would never request of staff that they do anything except bring good food. So I would like that
we'll change
request
that to
turn
suggestion.
Suggested.
Okay,
And I have a question about item 6. Under the motions, I read these motions.
which page are you on now?
Oh, now I'm on page 6.
Page 6,
Under the motions, 2 motions were submitted. I don't see a difference between the two.
One is design approval and final approval, and the other is design approval and continue 4 weeks.
So we just substituted, and that covers. Okay, so the same goes for another item that had 2 different motions. Item 8. Okay. All right. Thank you.
okay. Are there any other additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner House?
Let me find them. Let's see. First one would be on page 8,
Okay,
item 7, comment 8. Change the word up and pop up to pop out.
now wait a minute, page 8 or page 7?
Page 8,
I don't see item 7.
you don't see it there because it started on the previous page. But it's the very top of the page, comment 8, study the dimensions and depth of the pop-up, change that to pop-out projections. And on page 10, which would be item 9, in what is actually the third motion
Now,
shown on
wait a
there.
minute, on page 10, I'm not finding item 9 either.
Well, once again, it started on the previous page. But this covers item 9. And
I don't see item 9 on the previous page. Are you talking about page 9?
if you go to page 9, it says item 9, and then that keeps continuing on to page 10. But if you just go to page 10, and the motion at the bottom of the page that has 7 comments in it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so item 5, I would just change the wording in the second half of that sentence so it reads, the trash enclosure should have a grape stake fence using heftier stakes than contemporary ones.
Perfect.
Because they're not necessarily historical.
Right,
Okay.
Those are my only changes.
thank you. Any other additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair, page 12, under the motion, Item number 7, continue to refine the east elevation of De La Vina Street. That should be reworded. It's not clear.
Continue to refine the east elevation
On De La Vina Street?
on De La Vina Street, yes.
Okay.
Of should be on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
I abstain,
And Lentic will abstain?
not having been in attendance.
Yeah, right. Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner Mahan. Item A, 920 Summit was continued 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Item B, 2559 Puesta del Sol received approval of review after final. Item C, 2559 Puesta del Sol was continued 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Item D, 610 State received project design approval and final approval with conditions. Item E, 201 West Carrillo received final approval. Item F, 924 State Street was continued 2 weeks, and item G, 113 Harbor Way was receiving project design approval and final approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as
Read
read?
that motion.
It's been moved.
Second?
Moved by Drury, seconded by House. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much. Announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Thank you, Commissioner Mahan. I have a couple announcements. As I'm sure you've all noticed, the urban historian Nicole Hernandez and the HLC Secretary Jennifer Sanchez aren't able to make today's meeting. They are in Summerlin, so they weren't able to come here due to the 101 closure. Item 5 on today's agenda, 35 State Street, which was a review after final for light pattern projections. The applicant requested to postpone that to the next available agenda, and that site visit will need to be rescheduled because of the rain
We should have a
from
motion for
yesterday.
that.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to reschedule item 5.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Vena, seconded by House.
Does it go to a specific date?
The next available agenda will be January 24th. So
January 24th. And we'll probably have a nighttime meeting there.
we have to have a nighttime meeting for the light, so it will likely be that Monday or Tuesday in advance to the meeting.
You'll
Um,
schedule that with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Followed by adult beverages?
Absolutely.
I have one additional announcement. The council appeal for 800 Santa Barbara Street for the AUD project is scheduled for January 23rd, so we do need a commissioner to go and represent the project, someone that was in support of the approval to grant project design approval.
Which project was that?
800 Santa Barbara Street, so right next to
When's that being
the
appealed?
Anacapa School.
When?
That's scheduled for January 23rd.
January 21st?
23rd, yeah. So I can send out a follow-up email if you're not sure at this moment, but we do need a member of the HLC to attend that hearing.
I think several of us should go. I'm going to go.
Okay.
So who's going to go? Sorry?
Well, I'm going to go because I supported that project. I think that somebody that didn't support the project should also go.
Correct. I think that would be beneficial since the HLC was sort of split
I don't
on that
remember
decision.
who supported and who didn't.
I did not support it. And January 23rd?
January 23rd is the hearing. Yes.
I believe I
Afternoon.
abstained.
Yes. You abstained because it was taking action for product design approval, and that was
And I had
early in
not
the
seen it
summer.
before, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So are you going to go then,
I will go.
Mr. Drury? I'll see you there.
Two Irishmen yelling at each other.
Okay. But I wanted to mention that 2 months ago, Joe Andriolitis came with at the project approximate, I don't know the exact address, but it was like 200 East Anapamu Street, and it had to do with a pergola
Right.
that was supposed to be presented to us, and it wasn't. And so we continued it for him to study the pergola, and we gave him 2 months to do that, and that 2 months is up today. So I wanted to bring that up to staff that he's not on the agenda and he should be contacted.
Absolutely. I'll contact him.
Okay.
When there was a joint planning commission city council meeting, they discussed the historic ordinance and said that, staff said that in 2 months they would be moving on it, and that is getting closer and closer. So I'd like to remind staff that it should be coming forth very soon.
Here we have Irma coming up.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Arias, that's correct. We did report to you that based on our conversations with the City Attorney's Office, that it was indicated that as soon as that they could possibly get this ordinance back to the commission would be in about early in the year, is what we said. So I will be checking in with the city
I
attorney's office.
appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any subcommittee reports? There will be a meeting of the HLC Designation Subcommittee meeting Wednesday, January 24th. And I don't think that hasn't been assigned yet, and we'll do that in 2 weeks. Will we have time? Let's see, 2 weeks will be 10 and 14, it will be the 24th, won't it? So how is that going to work? That's not going to work out, is it? We won't be able to assign to the designation committee until the 24th, so we won't be able to be meeting that morning unless the old members meet. And we do it that way? Can we do it that way?
We can potentially do it that way. I think we should discuss this stuff and see
the
what the most beneficial.
I'm looking at the designation, that was Grumbine, Arias, and Vena on the designation committee? Okay. I want you to contact them and let them know that they're supposed to be here. That would be a morning meeting, I
That'll be
presume.
the morning meeting, yeah.
Very good, thank you. Our first item then is 100 block of State Street. This is a proposal to remove the existing bus bench and shelter within the public right-of-way adjacent to the Harbor View Inn project located on 101 State Street. The existing Lockheed mural will remain. The adjoining wall will be removed as part of the project. All bricks affected would be replaced to match the existing sidewalk, etc. Final approval is requested. Project was last reviewed December 13th, 2017. Welcome. Give your name for the record, please.
Hi, Chair Mahan and members of the commission. My name is Terry Green. I'm with the City of Santa Barbara. This one. Am I okay? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you know what? It's not on.
It's not on.
There we go.
And speak in very, very closely to the microphone.
Okay.
Like pretend you're Frank Sinatra.
Okay, although I don't have that kind of voice. But thank you. I'm back before you guys today to seek final approval for the removal of the bus bench there on the corner of State and Mason Street. And last we met, the commission was supportive of the removal, but you wanted me to return after doing some research on the utility boxes that exist out there, as well as talk to Henry Lenny. It was thought that that was perhaps his bus bench design. So I have spoken with Henry Lenny, and he said it is not his design. He had done a metal bike kiosk at one point in time down in that location, so he said perhaps it was misunderstood that this was his design. He said for whatever it's worth, he was also in agreement with you guys that it was okay to remove it. So I have spoken with Henry.
Do you want it?
No, he doesn't want it.
Does he want it?
No one seems to want it. And I actually further spoke with former RDA staff, and none of them had any substantial input on the designer or the need to keep it. So on that note, we are seeking approval to remove it. I did also talk with Derek Bailey, our traffic engineer, and the utility boxes that you see out there are
We'll pass those around.
an Edison split meter and pedestal, and it's for the street lights and the traffic signals. Derek told me that the foundations for those boxes were actually installed in 2014, and it's been slated for this location since the 90s. At this time, they don't have any funding to relocate them at all. It would cost about $25,000 to relocate that equipment, and so it's not on their docket to relocate. And so that's the information I was able to obtain from him.
Okay.
So if the commission is still in
I'm
agreement,
going to read the motion to our last meeting, which I probably should have done before you spoke. But anyway, it says the structure is nicely designed but does not fit with the design of the new building. The relocation of the structure and bench is highly recommended and preferred, perhaps coordinating with the original designer. Didn't we find out who the original designer was after we talked about Henry and it turned out to be somebody else? We didn't find
No,
out?
Commissioner Mahan, we didn't find out who the original one. That was why we were looking to see if Henry was the...
The utility boxes and their history need to be explained, and you've done that. Since the structure does not serve its intended purpose, the commission supports the removal of and relocation of the structure and the bench. So I think the only other thing was that we were concerned that that the structure would be reused if possible. Have you
Right.
researched that anymore?
no one wants it. So,
Nobody wants
yeah.
it.
Mr. Chair, are we in questions?
Not yet, but we will be shortly. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to open up public comment. I have a slip here from Kellum DeForest. Kellum?
Good afternoon. I just think that bus shelter is very pleasantly designed and is appropriate for El Pueblo Viejo. In contrast to the out-of-the-box ones that have been scattered around.
Yeah, get your thing up there closer, Kellum.
What?
Your microphone.
Your microphone on and
Okay.
close to your voice, to your
Okay.
mouth.
Oh, I think a place before the structure is torn down and discarded, a site for the bus stop shelter should be found, and maybe it could replace some of the seemingly stock out-of-the-box bus shelters that have been put up elsewhere in Santa Barbara, and maybe I don't know if any are in El Pueblo Viejo, but I would like to see the commission find a site for that structure before it's torn down.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, then we'll move on. Do we have any questions or comments from the?
Yeah, my main
Commissioner
question
House?
would be to determine whether or not the location of those SoCal Edison pedestals should have required approval at the time, and did they ever get an approval, or are they not subject to HLC review?
My understanding is that these things are subject to our review.
Okay.
And recently, before you came on the commission, we reviewed a number of them in downtown Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And
I remember reviewing them last time
in
I was
fact, I
on the
think we
commission.
had fairly strong support from City Council on a couple of them that they would be changed dramatically from what was originally proposed.
Commissioner Mahan and then Commissioner House. So they are under HLC purview to some extent. A lot of the times with these projects, there is limitations on where they can be placed, but on the design of them is really your purview. So the colors and I know Malaga Green was often required for these versus others.
So their location is not subject to our,
There isn't a lot of flexibility on
Okay.
the locations.
Okay.
No.
With the fiber optic runs and the different underground utilities, it's pretty specific as to where they need to be placed.
my personal feeling is that this should be considered a violation because it was installed without the proper review, And so that should stay with the installation until such time as it can be remedied. I don't know that we have any recourse to make them remedy it, but it's really an eyesore in front of this nice new building.
Yes,
And
I agree.
that's fine.
Commissioner Vena?
No comment. I concur with Steve, though.
Commissioner Rios?
I concur with Steve, and also, I would like to see the bench recycled, the tile and all, and I can think of numerous places where it could be put that would be nice to see, and any of the city parks, et cetera, up by the Mission. There's many places that it could go, and I would really not like to see that bench destroyed. And I agree about the boxes, and we've been told now they don't want to go underground anymore, they want to go overhead because it's cheaper.
Well, maintenance issues with the
Yeah,
underground.
Well,
All right,
that translates into money,
Yeah.
so.
Mr. Lendick?
Yeah, yes. I cannot vote on this as I did not review the prior actions or video, but I do have a comment. I think that there is a real lack of protection for bus users when they wait in the city. It's almost a crime to see people sitting out in the sun and the occasional rain we have. And I believe that if we were to go and look at the approvals for this building at the Planning Commission, that there would have been a condition which said you must provide for free bus passes for tenants, residents of the hotel. Reducing automobile trips, one of the prime things that is dictated on hotel motels in the downtown area. And here we have a beautiful place to go out and sit, drink a cup of coffee, whatever, waiting for the bus to come, and we're saying, take it out. Not only take it out, but we don't even have a place to put it back in, and if it is put back in, it probably wouldn't be a shelter. So I simply say, I can't vote on this, but I find it a crying shame that we're losing it.
At the last meeting, we were advised by the applicant that this particular bus shelter was not being used anymore. The buses weren't stopping there, something to that effect.
No, there is a shuttle stop in that location, but because it's set back so far, generally speaking, the people who are waiting for the bus are waiting out on the front of the curb line as it is. And additionally, because of the use that is the occupancy that's currently at that location, the folks aren't waiting at the bench.
Maybe
So.
It's a convenient reason to remove it, but I don't know that the city would have come to us with a request to remove it on their own. They are being driven by someone.
Mr. Drury?
Yeah, I guess my comment would be that I agree with Commissioner Howes. But I also, my experience with these pedestals and boxes have been that they, within their limited ability to do so, they have tried to work with us in terms of where these things go. I will say that. And I find that I hope this isn't just bulldozed into a mass of masonry, because I think that I would like to see that stuff saved and put in the boneyard, because you never know when you need a pedestal. You might need a pedestal at some point.
Well, I think we have two issues here. The issue of the electrical boxes, I think I'd like to ask staff to research that further and come back with a very definitive statement as to whether, what is our purview and where does our authority begin and where does it end with these boxes. I think we need to know that.
So Commissioner Mann, staff can absolutely provide you with that information, but as I said, we're looking at the design and, as much as we can with the flexibility of the locations, but as I said, there are limitations to that. So it's really on the design and the size and the shape and also landscaping around these, for screening purposes, if possible.
That would be a good thing. The other thing is if the bus shelter is too far back, why don't we just move the bus shelter up to the curb?
I'm not so sure it would relocate easily. It's one thing to build it, but then to pick it up and move it, I don't know that that's possible.
Anything's possible with enough time and money.
With enough money, yes, you are right about that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
I find it to be a really unattractive building down there, and it competes with some of the better designed buildings. It's would not be my favorite bus waiting structure in the city. I think we could do better than that.
I remember on the Sola, I don't think they were condominiums at the time, they were rental units. The Sola Street, the Arlington Theater Sola Street, I believe that a bus shelter was a part of the design for that, as I recall.
So, Commissioner Mahan, this specific shelter was not part of the project that's being built behind it. It was already in existence. There are times where new projects will come in and they will have city street improvements that are applied to the project, but that's not the case with this specific one.
To the applicant, have you researched relocating this? Have you talked to the Parks Department? Have you talked to MTD? Anybody that might possibly be able to use it?
Sorry, that's not on. Like I said, we did talk to Henry Lenny at the direction of this commission last time because it was the thought that he could relocate it to one of his sites. And because the commission was in support of the removal of it, just with a little further research on speaking with Mr. Lenny as well as the traffic engineer, that's the extent that we went, simply because of the direction we were given, as well as the fact that it will be very costly to relocate. And at the moment, it's not in our budget. I know that for sure. So Mr. Garza had mentioned that last time he was here. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If the bus shelter is too far away from the curb to be convenient, how did it end up there?
They widened the sidewalk.
The city widened the sidewalk and didn't move the bus shelter.
That's right.
That's right.
Commissioner Mahan, I just wanted, since there does seem to be a consensus that you want these materials to either be replaced in a different location or to be preserved, you can always request that the applicant salvage, the materials. Yeah, exactly.
And will staff come back with the definite direction for us on these transformers?
Yes, Commissioner Mahan. So outside of this project, I believe staff can definitely provide you with a timeline for how those came to be at their location and what review they got, if any, and their color and all of that. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
So at our last meeting, the commission did support the removal and relocation of the structure, and I think we have to let that stand.
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
But I think we can look further into the transformers.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the recycling of the bench is not under any consideration?
Support the removal or relocation of the structure. That was our.
So that relocation would be recycling?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are organizations in town that, the Mission, there are lots of places that, just talking to Mr. Lenny, isn't really investigating the possibility of doing this. And I think it's important that this be saved.
Right.
I mean,
I'm going to entertain a motion for a continuance for 2 weeks. Can we do a 2-week continuance?
Mr. House wanted to speak.
Yeah, I had.
Can you speak to the motion?
No, I'm not ready to make a motion because I have a concern with this project.
What is it that you'd like to say?
I just feel that there are 3 disparate elements here. There's the bus bench and shelter. There's the arched surround around the Lockheed memorial, whatever we should call it, and there are the utility pedestals. And with the bus bench and shelter removed, then there are two things just kind of sticking up out of the sidewalk in a non-designed manner. You know, so in some ways, this bus bench and shelter kind of unifies things a little bit, or at least distracts from seeing these sore thumbs of the utility cabinet sticking up out of the sidewalk. So I feel very uncomfortable saying, yeah, take that thing away, and then we're left with this eyesore there. So I'm thinking about, should it be approval of the removal being conditioned upon something being done about the pedestals? And I could see a couple different options. One is to relocate the Lockheed sign and structure in such a way that it surrounds those pedestals, or a landscaping solution to those pedestals.
I think we can entertain a landscaping solution, but I think that our motion at our last meeting was to.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think we can rescind that now at this stage. We decided that we would leave the Lockheed sign as it was.
Yeah, I should have brought it up last time, but it's just,
I really think that the issue now is the utility boxes and whether or not they should be there or should be landscaped or whatever.
okay.
So I'm going to entertain a motion to continue to ask the applicant to research the relocation and of the, or if you don't relocate it, at least save it.
Recycle.
And recycle it, thank you. And that we will continue the utility boxes for 2 weeks for what should be done with them. Probably at least landscaping would be important.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded by House?
No, Vena.
Seconded by Vena, moved by Drury. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I don't like the way that portion of State Street between Mason and the railroad tracks it's cluttered, and it shouldn't be, because there's a really nice old hotel, the Indigo. There's the Children's Museum on the corner. There's a new motel going in that we've had our input in, and I'd like to see I'd like to see a sweeping view rather than, especially these utility boxes, a really, really big outsized bus bench, although there's parts of it that the tile particularly. And then it all takes away from the streetscape, and it all takes away from that Lockheed Memorial. And I think that I'd like to see things reduced in size or eliminated. That's my
Thank you.
addition.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Abstain.
And Lendick abstains. Okay. Item 2, thank you very much. Item 2 is 1202 Diana Road. This is a miscellaneous action resolution of intention to designate, pursuant to the Municipal Code, the Historic Landmarks Commission is requested to adopt a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing to consider listing the potential historic resource structure of merit designation or city landmark designation of the adobe house constructed in Spanish colonial revival style 1922, located on 1202 Diana Street. Do we have an applicant for we're just going to make this designation?
Commissioner Mahan, you should have all received a memorandum from the urban historian discussing why we want to do a reso of intent to designate this adobe as a structure of merit. So yeah, this is just to hold a public hearing to decide that. So we're just doing the resolution for that right now, and then we'll do the concept review following that.
And we have the resolution here. Do you have a comment?
Not on this.
Not on this one, okay. Okay, is there any public comment on this? Seeing, no, I don't, did you want to make a public comment?
No comment, but is that a picture of what?
No.
No.
I can lay down
no,
some
no,
photos for
that's
you, though.
wrong. Here,
We're going to get a picture.
I'm going to give you a picture of it. Here, there we go.
I'm Sean Lynch,
Yes.
working on this project, and this is Scott Smith, the civil engineer.
But I think
We're
you're
we're
right.
not ready to take the
Okay.
project.
You're right.
yet. We're just going to decide whether to designate this
Okay,
house.
no problem.
You could
You can
sit
sit there if you want to.
So, Commissioner
sit there.
Mahan, I'll just summarize Nicole's memorandum for the commission
Thank you.
and for the public. So this is a consideration for listing the Adobe either as a structure of merit or a recommendation to City Council to designate as a landmark. The residence at 1202 Diana is located in the demolition review study area. The urban historian did find that the Adobe constructed house in the Spanish colonial revival style has good integrity and meets criteria outlined in the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. The building meets criterion D and G and would qualify as a Santa Barbara structure of merit. It retains original divided light casement windows in the front and side elevations, and it has, as you can see in the photo, an expressive, massive chimney. There was an early addition permitted in 1926 of Adobe that may be the portion on the north side of the elevation. There are rear additions that are not visible from the street, but overall, Nicole did find that this was an exemplary form of small Adobe. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you. And now I should open up public comment.
Correct.
No public comment. Okay.
Oh, does Mr. Coleman,
What?
does Mr. Coleman want to speak?
No, I don't think he does. You want to speak on this?
I just wanted to see what it looked like.
Yeah. So, a question from the commission?
Questions?
I have comments, but not a question.
Okay, comment, Mr. Lenvik.
Someone smarter than me might chime in on this. I would not call that Spanish colonial revival. I would call that more Adobe style. Not that it's important, but I would like to hear more, people who are better qualified than I am. But, okay. I don't really, as I kind of glance through this memorandum, I'm not sure what is going to be designated and what isn't going to be designated. And I believe that I drove up to the site yesterday, and a young man who occupies the building chatted with me for a while. I believe there is a house in the back, which I didn't go back to look at it. I can kind of pick out where it would be. And I understand it is actually older or predates the Adobe, according to the gentleman that was in the house. Now, it's wood frame, but he says the original builders or owners lived in that small wood house prior to the Adobe being constructed. So I'm not sure that there might not be other structures on the site which may be worth looking at or talking to, but it's a beautiful site, and I just question whether or not we are properly calling it what it is. That's my only comment.
The memorandum was done by the urban historian, so that was her determination on it, and unfortunately I can only speak so much for her. She did think that there were Spanish colonial revival elements to the design. It obviously is an Adobe structure, though. So,
Some of the stuff is going to be torn off of the house, isn't it?
mm-hmm.
And the Adobe is, the idea of designating this is we would just be designating the Adobe.
Correct.
To answer Mr. Lenvik's question about Spanish colonial revival, we use that word in two ways. And I think that Nicole was using it in the broad sense. I mean, everything that was built by the Spanish is Spanish colonial revival. I mean, what we do now is Spanish colonial revival, but we do also have three separate designations of Adobe style, Spanish colonial revival, and Monterey style. And usually the Spanish colonial revival, it refers to buildings like the courthouse or this particular building here. And so to call an adobe a Spanish colonial revival is a little bit confusing, as it should just be referred to as an adobe. But that maybe is confusing also because then that makes it sound like it's a really historic adobe from the 19th century. This building was built in the 1920s. So that's the Spanish colonial, that's where the Spanish colonial revival comes into.
Mr. Chair?
I have additional photos too, if you guys would like me to lay them out that I brought as well.
Well, I have a
don't think we
larger
need-
question
I don't
first.
think we need to do that. I think-
Not now, maybe later.
I think we can move on with the designation.
Mr. House has got a poignant
I have a
comment.
burning question.
Okay.
Is there an absolute necessity of resolving, approving or not approving this before we review the subsequent project? And if not, I would rather wait until the Commission's historian and the urban historian are both here.
So
to-
Commissioner House and Chair Mahan, all you're doing at this point in time, you're not doing a designation. You're doing a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing to designate it at a future point in time.
Okay.
So
Well, then
the
I'll
urban
make a
historian
motion
will
to
be
do
there.
that.
Yeah.
You need to read this, I guess
Whole
it's,
paragraph in the, okay, so pursuant to Municipal Code Section 22.22.035.D2, the Historic Landmarks Commission is requested to adopt, or is adopting a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing to consider listing on the potential historic resources list, structure of merit designation, or city landmark designation of the adobe house constructed in the Spanish colonial revival style in 1922, located at 1202 Diana Road.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Drury has seconded.
Question.
Yes.
We had some information given to us that there was a house in the back that
Yes.
may predate the adobe, and should that not be looked into by the historian as to its significance?
So Commissioner Rios, Nicole did go to this site, and I'm not sure about, I did not personally go
If
to
you
this
don't
site,
know the
but
answer, then
she
that
will
is
look
something
into
that I
it, yeah.
think we should have an answer to.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. When, at our next meeting, we can bring that question up to Nicole.
I won't be probably at the next meeting, so I'm bringing up the question now so it's not lost.
That's good.
Commissioner Arias and the board, the commission, I was at the site visit with Nicole Hernandez, and she was only concerned with the existing adobe structure. She said everything else, she gave the okay for demolition.
But again, I would like that, given the information that was given to us, I would like it looked into.
We can provide you with more information
That
about
would
the
be
one behind it.
appreciated.
Yes.
Okay.
Would the, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
would the applicant object to a commissioner walking the site?
I'll confirm with the owner. I don't see there being any issues.
Thank you.
And we might, before our next meeting, we may want to, just on our own, visit this site. I think it'd be worthwhile to do that. I think Mr. Lendick has already done it, and the rest of us should do that.
Yeah, if you guys like, just let Michelle know and I'll coordinate to get you guys on site.
Okay, very good. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much. I will move on to item 3. This is also 1202 Dana Road, and this is a concept review. It's a new project. I'm going to summarize a very long description here. The project consists of a proposal to subdivide an existing 1-acre parcel into 4 lots. The lots vary in size from 9,000 to 15,400 square feet. The application includes alterations to the existing Adobe residence. The existing Adobe residence is deemed eligible to be designated as a historic resource. The site grading, there will be 1,240 cubic yards of cut and 250 cubic yards of fill. Removal, relocation of 6 existing oak trees. 8,300 square feet of paving to create a new shared driveway. The proposal includes development of 1 new primary dwelling unit on 3 of the 4 proposed lots. And the proposal includes 2 new uncovered parking spaces and a request of the HLC for an exception to the covered parking requirement. Proposed vacant lots 1, 2, and 3 will be reviewed by the Single Family Design Board. The project requires Planning Commission review for a tentative subdivision map and includes a request for a public street waiver and street frontage modification. This application will address all violations identified in enforcement case ENF 2017-00868. Comments only. This is a concept review. Welcome, gentlemen. Will you give your name for the record?
My name is Sean Lynch. Scott Smith.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do we have, does staff have any comments on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, my name is Michelle Bedard. I'm an assistant planner and the project planner for this project. And I just wanted to let you know that this project is here for a one-time just a concept review hearing at this time. The proposed lot before you is proposed lot 4 with the existing adobe structure. Proposed lots 1, 2, and 3 will be going to the Single Family Design Board at a subsequent date in January. The project will require Planning Commission for a tentative subdivision map for the subdivision of the lot into 4 lots, a public street frontage waiver, and street frontage modifications for each of the 4 proposed lots. Other than that, I'm just here to listen and observe, and if you have any questions.
Okay. The Planning Commission, do they do the street waiver and the street frontage modification? The Planning Commission does that?
Yes, this goes to Planning Commission because it's a public street waiver that serves more than 2 lots.
Okay,
So
thank you.
the resulting project will serve 4 lots.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, when we'll get a presentation from you, the applicant?
Perfect.
You have to speak right into those
Yep, no
microphones
problem.
or we won't be able to hear you.
So yes, my name again is Sean Lynch. I'm representing the owner, and we're working.
Let's see if we can get that in.
So yeah, here's a project site. There's access currently off Coda Street and Diana Road right here. So currently this is about 15 feet. This is about 30 feet here. So these are kind of the main access points to the site. The lot is tucked away behind houses on each side. Currently, there's the adobe building with the addition, another small structure, and a 2-car garage. So our plan is to subdivide the lot into 4 individual lots with private access into the new parcels.
Okay.
So let me kind of just go through photos so you guys have an understanding kind of where we're at here. Okay, so here, kind of looking at the site, here's looking down Diana. Just kind of orientating yourself, looking down Diana towards the city. Kind of looking at the site that's currently existing. There's just a gate, hedges on each side, neighbors on each side here. Looking up Diana. And then this is on the other side here, looking at Coda. And currently there is, we're sharing an easement with the neighbor here. So this is actually the access site right here that's covered in landscaping. Kind of moving in through the site, kind of coming in, there's kind of this courtyard in this adobe. This portion here in the rear is the portion that is proposed to be demolished, which is, there's no permits and it's part of the enforcement case to be removed. This is portion of the existing that we're going to keep. Coming down, here is the 2-car garage. Most of this is unpermitted and there's no record of it, so that's why we're removing it, and it doesn't have any kind of historical significance. This is from the road that'll be off Coda, kind of looking towards the site. It's just brush and it's currently not used as any access point. Again, here is that center courtyard with the existing adobe, the big fireplace.
Pull it down here.
Yeah. Perfect. And here is looking at the facade of the adobe building. Currently, the site has a retaining wall to hold back most of the dirt. And kind of going back through, I guess we could just start here. There's kind of more looking at site conditions. This is in the rear of the lot, kind of in the northwest corner. Just looking towards more landscaping. And then the final one is looking northeast towards the end of the property. And I have some more photos here for you. And so this is more looking at the actual building. So again, these are kind of the photos you just saw, but now looking more at the details of the building. Some of this was in Nicole's report, but I just wanted to put them on here again. So, yeah, I brought this one in additional photos. They won't be in this set here.
We noticed.
Yeah. And so here's kind of looking at the entry of the building, the adobe structure. Again, here's some more details of the windows that Nicole was saying that they're original. Getting more into the building, there's just the courtyard again, and then here's more of the detail of the actual building. So, the trusses, some of this I'll address has been enclosed. So this was a covered porch that had been enclosed that we're going to remove and open up again. Kitchen and just some other little details there.
Do we know who built this?
We don't. At least Nicole has not determined who it is yet. And here's the site plan, the survey, sorry. So here's the existing building. It's kind of an S shape in a sense. There's a lot of additions that happen. So pretty much from this line on is all an addition that happened unpermitted, along with that little structure in the back.
So this is the adobe here. This is very,
exactly.
Can't see it very well.
Yeah. Perfect. And then right here too. Correct. So that's the original adobe building there. And then this is the addition in the rear and this little accessory building here and the garage.
Where on there is you say there's an arcade that you're going to remove?
It's right here. So currently they enclosed, it's like this here. So they enclosed this space, which you can see right here. Yeah, and as you can tell, these are the exterior walls. They're almost a foot thick.
This was a porch. This was a porch to begin with.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Charming.
Yeah.
But you intend to remove that?
We intend to remove portions of it.
Oh.
Yeah. We're going to be opening up portions and then removing some as well. And I'll show you. I have a demo site plan for you guys to review. Since we're kind of looking at the site, I'll let Scott kind of talk about grading and kind of site conditions for you guys as well.
The real exciting stuff. Excuse me. Okay, so starting at Coda, we're proposing on widening the city driveway. And this is where there's the existing shared driveway easement with the neighbor to the south. So a proposed driveway that will run into about the middle of the flag. And we have a driveway that extends up to about the middle of this property, about in line with the existing house. And then we'll have the 4 proposed lots. The existing access driveway that goes to Diana Road will remain. It won't be the primary access, but it'll stay in play. And any questions regarding grading, I'll answer anything that you've got.
Well, you have a question. That little thing that I just drew on my pen
where is it?
was a different shape. It was an L shape. Now I'm seeing.
I think we should go.
Let me skip forward
plan.
to the demolition plan to give you guys an idea of what's happening here. So here is what we're proposing here. So here's the current configurations of the lot lines. So we're removing the garage, this accessory building, and portions of the existing building for the configuration of the lot. So what we're planning on doing is keeping the integrity of 80% of the existing adobe building and removing portions of it to meet the kind of requirements through zoning and planning of setbacks and solar access and stuff like that.
But this is part of the adobe.
Correct.
Right there.
Yes. Yeah, and so here's kind of the configuration. These parcels will be reviewed through SFDB, so really this is kind of what we're discussing. And so we've placed the property, it's right at the back here, so there's really not much room for it to move with the configuration currently. And so we have just the 3 lots, and then this one here with, we're proposing at this time a parking pad as well right here for this structure, because the only structure for parking was the garage. And then here, let me skip ahead to the actual parcel. These are some of the other parcels. And then here we go. Here's lot 4. So here you go. Here's to give you an idea of the existing demo plan. So this is the current configuration of the Adobe building. And so what we're planning on doing is just removing a portion of this L and opening up this this exterior wall and creating the covered patio that was currently there. There's also a covered patio here that's not permitted that we're going to be removing. So this is really the idea, is to remove all of this and kind of bring it back to just this front portion. And as you can see here, so we meet all the requirements, open yard and propose, and then let me go to the elevations to give you guys an idea. And so here's kind of the configuration. And so this is slightly different than you guys. I just cleaned these drawings up a little bit more, made them a little tighter for this presentation. So really all we're doing is, this is the elevation that's going to be cut right here. So this is where it ends. Here you can tell we're opening up the...
Run that up, please. Yeah, thank you.
This here?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so here's where we're opening up that exterior wall. So it is now a covered patio, open up. No change to any elevation here. Here you can see is where we'll cut the building. And so now we'll just have the kitchen here, dining, and we're trying to keep most of the integrity. And Nicole was saying that most of this facade is what it has original windows and is historic. So we really wanted to keep this elevation, and then we're just shortening up this. So really, the existing building would be about here, and we're just pulling it back.
Okay. I think we've got it. Thank you. I'll open up public comment. I have 2 slips here. Tom, like to come forward, and then Callum, you'll be second. Sit down and turn that microphone on.
Little button with a green light.
There we go. My name is Tom Signorelli.
Right into the microphone, yeah.
There we go. I live at 1204 Diana Road, which is right next door to this project. And my concern is access. I just heard these gentlemen tell us that the 3 lots and the Adobe will all have access from CODA, but they will also have access from Diana Road, which means that the tenants that are living there, the property owners, will have a choice of which way they want to leave the property and come to the property. 30 years ago, I bought it into a single-family dwelling neighborhood. And when you add on 2 cars per house, that would be a total of 8 cars that would have the choice of coming down that driveway. There's nothing to stop them from coming down Diana. It's totally up to them, up to their discretion, whether they feel that it's faster or not. Anyway, what I would suggest is that there would be some way to block it off so that the Adobe stays on the access on Diana Road and the other other lots on CODA. By allowing them to have their choice, we're no longer a single family home neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Kellum?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Tom a question?
You may. Tom, come back.
Go to sheet 102. I want to ask him where his house is on that plan. Sheet 1.
Yeah. So this is you here, correct?
Yeah. There's the driveway right
So you're right next to it.
Right
Yep.
next to the
Yep.
driveway.
Thank you.
1204, is that correct?
See, you look out your backyard and you see the Adobe.
Well, it's kind of off at an angle.
Yeah, he's south of there.
I see, okay.
And there's
okay.
a significant grade change
Yep.
between the
Yep.
finished floor there and the Adobe. It'd probably be close to, what would you say, 10, 15 feet?
Well, what I'm concerned with is you're going to have that road in the middle here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kellum?
Yes. I think before you go any further with this, we need a historic structures report or a full report on the history of the property from when this acre piece in this neighborhood is sort of an anatomy. So I would request the applicant or the urban historian to prepare a thorough structures report of this entire lot, and that would solve the question of when the other building on the lot, which I don't quite see in this plan, and the whole history, and maybe we could find out who designed it and why, and that would help your deliberations instead of jumping right in and dividing this property up into,
Thank you, Kellum.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Paul Fletcher? Sitting right over here, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Commissioner and commissions.
Give your name for the record.
My name's Paul Fletcher.
Thank you.
I own the property at 1203 East Coda and also 1211 East Coda Street. And
Can you show us where it is right here? This is Coda here.
this one and that one.
So this one,
This one?
this one.
And that one.
So you're one, there's one house between you and the driveway.
Yes, sir. Just as the previous gentleman had brought up is the traffic problem. So I'll address that in a minute, but I knew the people that lived here, they have both passed away, but before they did, I've lived in this area for about 32 years. And during that time, while they were still active, I spent many a time over there with them, conversing about the property. I'm also not a historian, but I love history. I printed and published some Walker Tompkins books. I'm friends with Neil Graffey. In fact, I wanted to have Neil come and do a little more research on this because Diana Lane and that area of the city, per some of the research that Tompkins and Graffey have done, originally was a city dump up until probably 1920 or thereabouts. And the building in question, the older building in question, I believe was built in 1911. And so there's a little bit more to the property than what we're talking about today. That's one thing.
We're going to get to that, believe me.
I haven't seen these plans, and I don't think I've been notified by the Planning Commission. I did get a note from your commission, but not from the other people that are looking at this.
Probably hasn't been scheduled yet for the plan yet.
Okay. So I'm going to be interested in attending those too. But when it comes to addressing the traffic in our area, in my 32 years, when I first moved onto Coda Street, like the previous gentleman, I was under the misconception that it was a single family. Obviously, Diana Lane, he probably has the misconception more than I do, but during that time, my wife and I actually walked from APS to Milpa Street and got signatures for the residents on both sides of the street that the city please do something about the traffic on Coda Street. Okay.
Yeah.
The net effect was that I got the radar detection trailer placed in front of my house. The reason why I'm telling you this is Soledad Street ends right here, and if you weren't paying attention, when they widen that driveway out, there's going to be a lot of accidents because we've got traffic that's going at least 50 miles an hour at Coda Street.
Okay.
And Soledad Street potentially would think that it's going to continue.
Some of these things are really planning commission issues. You know, we're looking more at the Adobe,
Okay.
so.
So anything to do with traffic, I want it to be also mentioned that Coda Street's going to be highly affected by whatever traffic is generated by the subdivision of this property.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Okay, then we're going to.
You have two more people.
Oh, well, you have a blue slip? Well, come on up and speak anyway, but then you have to fill out a blue slip and hand it in.
My name's Rick Grancolis. I live at 1220 Diana Road. We're adjacent to the property in the back. In the proposal here, you talked about relocation of 6 existing oak trees, and I was wondering if you could show us which trees that would be? Because we didn't really get into that. We were in his discussion.
Can I ask him that?
Where is the arborist report? Which sheet are you on? A102.
Right here. Okay, why don't you point out the trees?
Can you wait until we get there, please?
A102.
Okay, so there's one here, and then there's an additional one here.
Could
They have
you-
X's.
Excuse me, we need them identified by, so we can see them on our map.
Here we go.
They're all on there.
I think if you show them here, you're talking about this tree right
Well,
here.
I have X's right here, as you
Yeah,
can
but
see.
it's so dark that nobody can see it. So
Yeah.
let's show them here.
Okay, so we'll have, they're number coded, so we have 25. Sorry, not 25. We have 24, which is this one here. Then we have 26, which is this one there, as you showed. There will be these two down here, which is 11 and 27. And then really the other oaks would be the ones along here. So there's 14, 15. We're keeping all of these.
Doing these.
And then there is an additional, and we have a street tree up here we're going to have to remove, and an additional 17 right here.
So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Or no, this one is
of these and variety.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7, but this is off property.
7 and a street tree.
Yeah.
Can I get a picture of this? Okay. So the other question is about cubic, the dirt that's being
Yes.
used, and if you can show us the areas where that's
Need to
gonna
use the
happen.
microphone.
Oh, sorry.
microphone.
Okay.
Let me go to.
Second question
we
is
have
about the removal of dirt.
Yeah, let me show you the kind of what's going on, and I'll let Scott.
There's 1,240 cubic yards of cut and 250 cubic yards of fill.
I just wonder where that's going to take place.
Yeah, but we'll be wondering about that too.
No, they're just replacement.
Okay.
A little bit here, a little bit there. The majority of that cut is driven by some of the underground
sizes.
stormwater features that are driven by city requirements. So if you study these sections, we're trying very hard to maintain proposed grade to be very close to what's existing. So a lot of the material that we calculate is based on structural sections of buildings, roads, and then infrastructure.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more question,
More,
if possible? Okay, what about sewage? I know there's one existing sewage that I believe goes out to Diana Road right now, but you're going to be adding 3 additional lots with houses, so how would the sewage work there? There was nothing in the...
Go ahead.
The sewer district has requested that we provide calculations to show what sort of sewage we're generating. So that's their department to review. And we're adding a new sewer line. The existing one that is running, serving the Adobe will be abandoned, and a new sewer line will be added.
You were in the sewer line to Diana?
We're going to Diana, yes.
So the new one will go out to Diana.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Close public hearing then, unless somebody else wants to speak.
The lady back at the,
Do you have a blue slip for us?
Without those blue slips, all is lost.
Okay. Kristen?
Kirsten, yes. Hi there. I currently live at 1133 East Coda Street, and I live in a condominium that is on the existing driveway
Speak right into
that is proposed to be shared. I have a upstairs unit. It is the only upstairs unit. It was built in 2004. The original property was, I think, built in 1935, and they have since built a duplex in the front that was built in 1972-ish, I believe, and then my unit, which was added in 2004. The reason I bought the unit was because the views were beautiful. It was a quiet neighborhood. It had no neighbors that were obstructing anything. I didn't know that the driveway was shared with that property when I bought it. It had, I guess, it was like some sort of agreement with the owner that we could use part of that driveway. When I now pull into my driveway, I am looking at a dumpster and rubbish, and it looks terrible. I have asked multiple times for a screen of some sort to be put up, which has graffiti on it. I'm very concerned that this is going to be how it moves forward with this project. That not only are the current owners, not just my property, but the existing properties on Diana, that we won't be taken into consideration. As I said, it's a quiet, beautiful neighborhood, and it kills me to think that our views are going to be compromised by, I don't know, more housings that we don't need.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I ask?
Yes, you may.
Are you talking about disturbing of views?
Disturbing of views.
Not out toward the city. You'd be looking more west.
I have a photograph of what I have as a view.
Let's just.
But right now, I can.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Views, private views are not protected.
Right, I understand that.
So I don't want to get into a discussion of private views because we don't have any, we don't protect those.
Right, I understand that. Like I said, my biggest concern right now is the shared driveway. There's the gentleman that had the concern about people coming from Diana. I'm just as concerned as people coming from Coda. People come down that road really fast.
Yeah, okay.
And like I said, it's just, it's a lot of traffic.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how those
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
I do have one more question.
All right.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
So you live on what would be Soledad if the easement went through to Diana?
Oh,
This
Coda.
location right here.
Yes.
My unit is here.
Yeah, I see you on the map here, on this plat map. So
Yeah.
that easement would, Soledad ends at Coda. But
Exactly.
would have continued west on that.
Exactly.
on
If
that
you
easement.
were on Coda,
You
continuing.
take access off of the easement.
Yes.
Yeah.
I pull in currently here, which is the shared driveway, and I live here, and this is where the chain link fence is with the storage. And right now, there's nothing, and it's really nice. I have a glimpse of the adobe, which is nice to see, but that's kind of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else would like public comment? I'll close public comment, and it is to the commission for questions. Mr. Lenvik?
I have a question of staff. I can see our authority with regard to the adobe. Why are we looking at the subdivision and the residences on the subdivision? It's not in the landmark district.
No, we aren't.
No, but the proposed subdivision is also under discretionary review. And as a result of you looking at parcel 4, you're also reviewing part of the subdivision.
So because we're looking at the historic building, possible historic building, then we are obligated to look at the subdivision and comment to the Planning Commission?
Yes, on comments regarding site, existing site conditions, site grading, and the proposed project.
We had a similar project like this on San Remo, I believe, with the Plunkett House, and there were three other houses that went to the Single Family Design Board, and but we looked at the whole. And there was a creek there, and there was a lot of landscaping.
But the Plunkett House was a historic structure.
Well, that's right, but we're thinking.
This is simply, possibly a structure of merit or whatever. I mean, I question our authority on judging the subdivision.
No, I mean, the designation level doesn't matter. The fact that it's not currently designated doesn't matter. You just passed a motion to hold a designation hearing at a future hearing. And as part of that process and this overall subdivision, this proposed parcel 4 is subject to design review for the existing adobe and the subdivision.
Okay.
We have other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. House.
I see also in the item description, it says request of the HLC for an exception to the covered parking requirement. And did the applicant speak to that already? And if not, I would like to understand.
I didn't quite, I couldn't, you were mumbling as you were looking at your.
I am so sorry.
Commissioner House doesn't mumble.
I try not to.
Thank
So
you.
it says, it's part of the request here, the request of the HLC for an exception to the covered parking requirement. And there is no garage proposed for Lot 4. There is a permeable parking pad proposed for it. So I'm wondering what the justification for that would be.
I think that'd have to go to the staff hearing officer, wouldn't it? And it'd be with our recommendations for or against.
With your
No.
with your comments.
So it's essentially a parking waiver, and that is the discretion of the design board. If it was only that, and they were demoing their garage and didn't want to propose a new garage, and they weren't proposing a subdivision, that exception to the covered parking is the discretion of the design review board, subject to the review of the project.
I'm surprised we could just waive a garage. I wouldn't think that.
But there's a garage there now. They have a garage in their property now.
Yeah.
They're destroying the garage and not replacing it.
Yeah.
That raises a question in my mind of, it's not our jurisdiction, it's mandated by the code. They have to have a garage.
No, so commissioners, let me explain. The new zoning ordinance Title 30 has a provision for, it has the parking requirements, typical requirements for single-family residents require 2 covered spaces. There is a parking exception for a single residential unit if your total floor to lot area ratio of the residence to the lot area is less than 80% of the FAR. It is subject to the discretion of the design review board that you can propose or that you can approve a waiver of the covered parking. There is requirements. I'll read that to you. That's in chapter title 3175 under covered parking, single residential unit. It says 2 uncovered spaces, any lot developed with less than 80% of the maximum net floor area for the lot pursuant to subsection 30.20.030A, which is the requirement for 2 covered spaces. And the maximum floor area lot area ratio may provide 2 uncovered automobile spaces subject to approval by the appropriate design review body, provided a minimum 200 cubic feet of enclosed exterior storage space is provided on site.
Yeah, but they've got a property here of 4 acres.
4 acres?
Well, I mean, the entire
acre.
parcel, is there
1
now,
acre. 1
and they're taking a garage away.
Okay, we're still in question, so let's not.
Well, I want to understand what our jurisdiction is, and
We have the right
because I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, but we have the right to waiver it if we want to.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this would be an approval that you would do not at this time, but when the project comes back to you after Planning Commission review and approval.
Things will be clearer than we hope.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Arias?
First of all, what Mr. House has brought up about the request of the Historic Landmarks Commission, we aren't requesting anything. We have not put in a request.
No, it's a request of the HLC.
Yeah, it's worded wrong.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's worded wrong. And
No, it says a request of the Historic Landmarks Commission.
That's wrong. So that clouds things up. I'm concerned about the removal of the large number of oak trees. This is a large residential neighborhood. We've had testimony to this effect. I'd like to know what the size of those oak trees are and if any of them could be saved.
They're all listed.
Well, we just got the map today, just a few minutes ago. So if I haven't been able to find every inch of information, I'm sorry. But I
Okay.
want to know the size of the oak trees, and I want to know if any of them can be saved, because that makes a neighborhood, it's important to the neighborhood, and it would be important to adjacent properties.
Thank you. All right, wait a minute. Are we through with questions?
You have
Well, we are in comments now, I
Well,
guess.
you drifted
Julio.
into comments, but I'm saying, are we through with questions?
I have a question. And also photographs thereof.
Of the trees? Okay. So let's move on to comments then.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Pass the candy, by the way. You've kept it down there.
Well, I was waiting for a break in the action. Don't let least people have any. So when I read a sort of a synopsis of a project and I see demolition and removal of trees, that raises a red flag with me right away. My feeling is that this project is complicated enough that we should have a historic structures report as a requirement for this project to go forward, because I think that the neighbors have certainly expressed their polite opposition to this project, and I can understand why 1 acre in the middle of all the houses on Diana Road in Coda would sort of had a bucolic core, which was the trees and this little adobe house. And we don't have any purview, unfortunately, over the 3 houses that are proposed. That's single-family design boards, so you would be well to return when those hearings occur. I wish we could have that purview, because I would like to see buildings that would be equally, would be subservient to the adobe that exists. But I think that the project, it's complicated enough, as I said, and especially with the removal of trees, that I think a historic structures report is essential before this thing moves any further.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Limbeck?
I have no comments.
Miss
It's Arias.
Commissioner Arias?
Thank you. One of the things that we have charged as Landmarks Commission is to look at neighborhood compatibility of projects. And as such, that gives us the power or the jurisdiction to look at adjacent buildings to see how things fit into the neighborhood. And that's why we have the right to look at the other development of the other units. I agree that we need a historic structures report. We need the information on the oak trees. We need also to have, very honestly, the traffic, the Public Works Department look at the circulation proposed for here, because we all know that 2 cars don't always stay with a single-family neighborhood. So we need to look at that from the standpoint of safety of the neighborhood and livability of the neighborhood. We have seen projects that come in and say, oh, you only have to put 1 parking structure per unit, and they come in with 5 bedrooms. So we need to know specifically what's going on. We need to make sure that it works in the neighborhood, there's neighborhood compatibility, and that the residents as well as the new residents have a quality of life. And that's my position, so.
Thank you.
I think we've heard
Commissioner
enough. I think we've heard enough, and we need to move it on and address it at a later date when it's more complete, so that we can have all the information that we need to make proper decisions from.
Right. Commissioner House?
I would just add that I would not vote in support of the project if it's not covered parking. I think that's a necessity, considering it would not be too difficult to accommodate, and being such a small dwelling after it's remodeled, it has limited area for storage, so I think a garage is essential.
Nobody has commented yet on the cutting off part of the
That's
adobe.
exactly what I was going to say.
I'd
Mr.
like to
Chair?
hear what you're going to tell us.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
but we can make, this is comments.
As presented right now, I would not support the project because of that, that severing of the back of the historic structure. I think that's, I think there's other ways around that than chopping off the back end of that.
Okay, I hear everybody agrees that we should have a historic structures report. That would be very important, and that will also help to settle whether the portion of the adobe that is proposed to be removed is important and significant. I think that would establish that. I think that everybody on the commission feels that the oak trees, the removal of the oak trees is a very serious issue. We'd like to see pictures of those. We'd like to see descriptions of those, how, what is the trunk size, et cetera. And we want to scrutinize the removal of those oak trees very carefully. Neighborhood compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood and traffic is going to be important. These will be things that the Planning Commission will also focus on, and that will probably sort out at that level. The Single-Family Design Board will review these other structures, assuming that they get approved, and we will have no control over that. And I know that when we did the Plunkett House, the commission was very concerned about the other houses that were approved, but we had no control over it. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. We haven't talked about cut and fill, but 1,200 cubic yards of cut and 250 cubic yards of fill means that there will be lots of cut that will be removed, lots of truckloads that are going to either come out on Diana or Coda. This is something that we would want the Planning Commission to focus on. That would be very, very important. Covered parking, I heard one of our commissioners feels covered parking is really important. I don't know how.
I feel the same way.
I agree.
I think we're going to be very resistant to not providing covered parking in this particular neighborhood where I think every place else has covered parking. With those comments, has the staff got those
Mr.
comments
Chair?
down pretty well?
Mr. Chair?
I'd entertain, this is concept only, so we continue this,
I would continue it indefinitely since you're requesting a historic structures
indefinite
report.
continuance.
I'll make a motion for indefinite continuance.
I'll second that.
Okay, and Judy Arias, you have your hand up?
Yes, on the trees, one of the things that was emphasized for them to look at saving as many as possible, and that was not mentioned in your discussion. So I would like to say that
if the trees can be
preservation.
saved, that would be very important. And I think in the description here, it said
They're replaced, they're not
it
saved.
said something about replacing them or
removal and replace.
If you look at the arborist report, we are saving as many as possible, and we are replacing as well.
I don't think we have an arborist report.
Yeah, it's in this package.
I see, but we didn't get it.
So, commissioners, during the next review, will be supplied an arborist report in advance, just in
Okay.
the
Would
small
be good.
packets.
In advance.
Do you want that for 517?
Okay. So we'll want to see, let's put that in our comments, that we'll be interested in the arborist report when this comes back.
It
So
would help-
entertain a motion.
This is an example of the need for us to see the plans in advance before we start the hearing. And it doesn't work. We have to look for, and we can't pick out everything. And the printing is small, and we are not doing the public service if we don't look at these plans in advance and be able to really know what's going on.
Okay, but I'm getting a motion for indefinite continuance.
You have a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to, you guys want to take a little break?
Yeah, let's.
3 o'clock?
Sure.
Candy break, I'll say about 5 minutes.
Yeah, enough to eat about
I would
half a
also
box of-
suggest,
Thank you.
Meeting, and we're going to move on to.
Long. Took my husband home from the ICU yesterday, so I'd like to get home. Yeah, we're watching it.
Miss Allen, Happy New Year.
Okay, so it's just this one.
I hope none of them were affected by
Very
the
severe rectal
disaster.
bleeding.
Yes, I've got them right there. What are all of these? These are all on the same item? Okay. I've got it. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is 517 Chapala Street. This is the second concept review. This is it's adjacent to a structure of merit. It's a proposal to demolish an existing 1,300 square foot office building and construct a new 3-story, 15-room hotel and apartment building. We looked at this before. I'm going to read the minutes for the last meeting. It was continued indefinitely with these comments. Design a new building for this site that corresponds to the new proposed hotel use, of building. I'm not quite sure just what that means. Mitigate the blockage of a public view from Brinkerhoff and the view of this building from Brinkerhoff by either increasing setbacks for landscape space or mitigating the roof height, building height and or floor-to-floor heights. Restudy the Chapala elevation to have a sense of entry, indicate the lobby as the main entrance with architectural articulation to give it primary importance. Carefully consider the relationship of this building to the surrounding buildings. Respond to open space with open space. The scale and proportions of the building need to be restudied. The fenestration of Chapala appears too small. Reduce the slope of the roof and use a variety of roof forms to minimize the height of the project, particularly on the west, the Brinkerhoff elevation. Relocate the trash area so that it does not open onto a yard or residence across the alley at the Brinkerhoff. Carefully consider parking, passenger loading, check-in parking, and handicap requirements. Consider the impact of lighting on adjacent properties, particularly residential. Consider the yard areas and residences across the alley and to the south to the Victorian. Create a view into the project. Consider internal courtyards, which are encouraged in the urban design guidelines and HLC guidelines. Add trees. Vertical trees would be more appropriate than canopy trees. Eliminate the battered planter box. The design of the parking and circulation should be carefully considered on this hotel project and controlled so that as to not negatively impact the neighborhood. Those were our comments. I presume that you thought about them.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I will participate in this hearing. I have read the prior minutes and I watched the video from the June 18th hearing, which ran on and on and on.
No, really?
Was it a long one?
Well, the video was, maybe it was at a slow motion, I don't know. So I will participate in this hearing.
Mr.
Chair.
Do we have any staff comments?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, application, will you please?
All your commissioners are calling
Same
you.
applies to me. I reviewed the
Mr. Chair,
video.
may we have the comments so that we can read them?
Yes, you may. Okay, if you all give your name for the record.
Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting.
Lynn Robinson with SB Mesa Rentals.
Keith Nolan, architect.
Philip Suding, landscape architect.
Let's speak right into this microphone, Mr. Suding. You don't know the rules around here. Okay, welcome. We have a presentation from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before Keith gets started to go through the design changes and then Phil later with the landscape changes, I was just take a couple minutes of your time, myself and Lynn, to kind of touch on what's been happening, where we are since we were last here. It has been some time, June 28th, when we reviewed, we had our first concept review, and we've been taking that time to do quite a lot of things, and I kind of want to provide the commission with context. This is our second concept review. This project requires a development plan approval by the Planning Commission. So we are here before this board with the goal of achieving neighborhood compatibility, appropriate mass, bulk, and scale. The items that are listed on the side here relative to project compatibility, so that we can then move forward in the application process to move on to Planning Commission, where we do review and discuss a lot of the land use issues with the proposal once we work those out with staff. Now, at the hearing back in June, some of those things were raised. We were explaining the project, the operations of the project. There was some public comment about the proposed use. And so for that reason, we did ask Lynn to come, who manages these types of properties, and she's going to go over a couple points. And what we want most of our time will be for the presentation to walk through the changes and to address the design comments that were contained in here. Did I leave anything? Thank you. And since June, we also have met with the neighbors of the building adjacent to this project, close to the corner. Keith is pointing
to the north, yeah.
Thank you. To the north. In October, we met with the neighbors and we went through some of the changes. They were still sort of schematic at that point. And then again this week, once we knew our agenda time and folks were back in town, we went and met with the neighbors, and they are here also. And so I think we're very pleased with, I know I am. I think Keith's done an amazing job, taking your comments to heart and making some really good adjustments to this project. And just very briefly, a couple comments from Lynn on
Okay.
how we're proposing to operate this.
Sure. So thanks for the time. It's nice to meet all of you. So our business is 14 years here in Santa Barbara, and we're all about hosting guests. We host guests who are local here in the middle of a remodel or an insurance claim. We host visiting nurses when we also host travelers. And in what we do, it's very important to us that we get the right kind of people. And we've, early in our business, we've had the wrong kind of people. And it was a disaster for us and for our neighbors and for our clients' homes. So we have instituted some policies. We have contracts that are signed. And we also only work with public websites that have a rating system. So if you've not been rated within our range, you cannot stay with us. What's proposed here, it's almost bed and breakfast in that the management lives on staff. The handyman lives on staff. So there are two sets of coverage. The management lives on staff. They deal with noise issues. They welcome folks. They're there for a dinner recommendation. Something's broken in the home. The handyman is there for similar. He may only work half-time, but he's there if the management is out of town, they're on vacation or Costco, whatever the status is. I think those were the main things that I just wanted to say about the way that this type of arrangement is. This isn't your typical VRBO Airbnb vacation rental. This is something much more different than that. We care a lot about what we do. We don't want to be bothered. And we don't want our neighbors to be bothered. Believe me, as a community member, I have been bothered. So it's very important to us what the neighbors think. It's very important to us that our clients are happy. And so I think that kind of rounds out the things I wanted to say about how this establishment will be run once it's built. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I'd like to start off by saying that while this is a continuation project, that we basically redesigned this thing from the ground up.
Can you speak up, please?
And
We can't hear you.
Is that on? Yeah.
Aim it directly at your mouth.
All right. And that the overall project is about 10% smaller than the one that was entitled before.
Okay.
So with that said, I'd like to direct you to T1.1, the cover sheet itself. The location of the project, according to the vicinity map, it's in the middle of the block between Haley and Coda, right on the south side of Chapala Street. Now, the program itself is about 15 hotel rooms and 2 apartments, and they're actually for managing the managers, as Lynn just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. With that said, I'd like to direct you to the elevation right here, the streetscape elevation. On your right side, my left, we have the 531 condo project right here that's 3 stories. On the other side, we have the historic resource of 509 Chapala Street. And our project presently is basically a used car lot at this point with a couple of small outbuildings in the back of it. Now, also, one more thing to look at the elevation right here, too, just as a point of reference, and there will be a couple of other points in the presentation here where I'll mention this, too, just as a reference, is that this is the project that was entitled and that you had seen before last June. So what we've done is we've worked very hard to reduce the overall massing on the project by reducing the plate heights, by reducing the roof slope of the roof, and then also reducing the square footage overall by about 10%. So with that, I'd like to go to A1.1.
You push that. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Looking at on your right side, the proposed site plan, first floor plan itself. So you can see right here, the project we had before, basically the parking came pretty much up to the street at that point. And so what we've done is we've added a certain amount of commercial right here in addition to the lobby space itself for the hotel. Okay? And so we've redesigned the whole parking itself. And the concept of the parking is basically it's intended to go in and go out of Chapala itself. We have basically a secondary egress only from the back here, and I would say that for the most part, it would be probably put on a delayed egress, so you'd literally be discouraged from going out into the alley. So the primary, like I said, entrance and exit would be from Chapala. A couple of other things right here too, that we've now taken the 531 building itself, and this is the first floor plan of that building. So you can see that where you have a nice pocket right here, and we've matched that.
Here comes the pointer, Keith.
Oh, thank you. The dreaded pointer. All right. So so you can see that we've matched the pocket on this side right here, which will give Mr. Suding a nice opportunity for landscaping. And then also on the upper levels, what we've done is we've stepped it back, and you'll see that in a couple of minutes too. Couple of other points of interest. The trash was over in this area before. It was asked to be moved to the other side, which we did. We've moved it actually right next to the trash right here. In their garages. And let's see, I think that's, yeah, we do have a pocket for parking on right here too. We have addressed the parking issues themselves as far as accessibility, EV accessibility, EV parking, in all cases. So we have looked at all of that. Also, moving to the second floor plan at this point, I think you can see, I'm going to start with the building next door, the 531 building, so you can see the outline of what you're looking at next door versus where we're at on this property right here. So you can see on the first floor, we've kind of matched, well, there is a one-story element right here. It does match up right here, but it steps back. There's a roof that does step back just like this one we've done right here. So what we've done is we've created more of opportunities for both hardscaping and landscape pockets. And once again, Mr. Suding will address those in a few minutes right here. At the back of the lot itself, addressing the alley, we're now we're down to 5 decks right here. And basically all of the decks are enclosures with the exception of this one and this small space and this small space, which are open air. Everything else is kind of within an enclosure itself. We're really looking to limit light and sound going out the back of the property itself. Let's see. I think I'd like to move to A1.2 at this point. And the proposed third floor plan right here, you can see once again, we have basically it's like a walkway up here, open air walkway on this side. We've got the 2 apartments here that face the street or address the street, and then the units to the back, they're stacked over the other units, but they are a little bit smaller, and they have the only outdoor decks. I've got one private deck right here that kind of addresses the private courtyard, and a semi-private deck in this area here. Nothing that faces Brinkerhoff or the alley. One thing that came up during the discussions with the neighbors, especially the owner of this unit right here, Mr. Sarmiento, and you'll hear from him in a few minutes, in that there was one request that he had made at our Monday meeting, was that maybe, is there a way that we could maybe take this portion right here and move it more around on this side of the building? I mean, my response right then was, well, basically, unfortunately, on this side, we have a historic resource over here, okay? And so the idea is to really provide that buffer in between. So I just want to throw that out there. One more thing on the apartments themselves. Each of the apartments do have private outdoor space. Apartment A right here, you come out the door and you go up your private stairs to your private roof deck. That's not for the hotel. And then also the same thing on apartment B. Basically, you go out your front door right here and you have your private roof deck at that point. Now I'd like to go to A1.3. Starting at the proposed alley elevation right here.
Let me just slide it down a bit. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, this is the flip side of the other one that that we looked at right here, basically this is the elevation that we get from the alley, the 531 building right here outlined. You can see where we were before with our project and how we've reduced the overall massing on that. As I mentioned before, roof pitches have been reduced to about 2.5 and 12. Plate heights, we've looked at the plate heights. The plate heights on the first floor right here, we reduced those to 8 foot. The second floor are at 9. Third floor, they are at 9 right here, with the exception of the end unit right here, which is down at 8 foot.
We have a phone going off here somewhere.
I'm sorry, we cannot hear this gentleman. He has a very wonderful, soft voice, but it's not projecting clear enough for us to understand what he's saying in relation to
You've
the
got to put
pictures.
that microphone right in your mouth.
Put it in my mouth.
Well, not quite, but
All right.
We're talking about plate heights?
Yes, yes. Would you like me to?
But you can stand back there.
Yeah.
Not here.
I do have a better illustration here on the plate heights that, looking down at the proposed west elevation, which is the same as right here. It is in my face.
yeah, you have to point it. Point it.
Shouldn't face Phil. It should be like I have it right now.
Yeah.
So
No.
no, so like that.
Like that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Sir, you can come up here if you want. Sir, you can come up here if you want and look. Get behind us. Yeah.
Okay. Now looking at the proposed west elevation here, you can see that facing the alley itself, we're down at 8 foot plates all along here. Okay. The second floor is at 9 foot.
Now it's off.
Oh my gosh.
All right, start over.
Okay, starting over again. The first floor plates are all at 8 foot right here. Second floor is at 9 across. The third floor, the end unit right here, we reduced that to 8 foot. The rest are at 9 across here. The roof pitches have all been reduced to 2.5 and 12 at this point. And we also put we put a hip roof on the end right here too. Other features here, let me see. Street elevation, we've kind of looked at that before, but there's just a line drawing of it. Proposed south elevation. Okay, this is the elevation that addresses the resource at 509 Chapala itself, which is on the front portion of the property. We have a separation, at least the front portion of the building right here, at least 50 feet from the resource. The back portion, we've reduced the mass that was up against the property line itself, and it's now combination 1 and 2 story at this point, but it basically there's nothing near it other than this building right here. The proposed north elevation, this is the elevation that addresses the 531 building right here. So basically the 531 building pretty much follows this profile, except it continues up and over and down again. So it pretty well matches it back to back right there. The front side, closer to the street, we felt that it was kind of important to more accentuate the 531 building itself. So other than just having the stairwell come up, we jogged it over right after, the deck right here pulls off the property line. So we spent a fair amount of time looking at the detail in this area right here. We felt that it was important. That's just as important probably as the street elevation, the street detail itself. Okay. Right here we have a, starting with the proposed street at perspective A, you can see the existing photo right here. And what we did was we created a 3D model, and I just sketched over the model right here and dropped it right in. So basically it's looking northwest, and then perspective B would be looking southwest. Southwest.
If I may chime in, I think what this helps demonstrate here is how we're trying to be compatible with the neighborhood. We've got a larger building on the Coda end of the project, and that's where we've put the massing. We've kept the massing low and away from the resource, so we're really trying to use that mass bulk and scale that exists on the streetscape with the development of our building and how it masses. So that's how we're trying to reach that compatibility with the neighborhood. I didn't know if you were going to say that, but I wanted to say that.
That's perfect. Thank you. All right. So here, on this, basically, this is an enlargement of the prior sketch that was done, so you can see actually a little bit more detail of the project itself. And then down below, once again, this is a larger elevation of the Chapala Street. Actually, this one's to scale, whereas on the cover sheet, it's not. So you get a better idea of what you're looking at right here. Lastly here, these were a couple of studies that were done. The first one right here is from the Olson Stack on the 3rd floor. I think you'll hear from them in a few minutes right here. And that's down below right here. You can see there it is from the deck, and that's kind of the view that you're basically, once again, we recreated it in a 3D model, and then I just sketched over that. We did the same thing with Mr. Sarmiento's unit right here from the master bedroom looking out to the property itself. You can see the corners of the building right here. Okay, and then we superimposed our elevation on that. So a couple things I'd like to do is just in recapping here, basically we've redesigned the project to enhance the pedestrian experience. We've reduced the plate heights, roof slopes, massing, square footage. The parking's been researched and redesigned, and we responded to it accordingly. And the mass building is according to the built neighborhood. It respects the relationship of the surrounding buildings, basically neighborhood compatibility is what Mr. Suning was saying. And we basically have created a view into the project itself, which that was another item that was asked of. So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Suning.
Okay, thank you. If you want to flip the sheet to this landscape sheet, we'll start on the first floor. This is Chapala Street, obviously, and the alley is back here. One of the comments made, I believe, by Mr. Vena at the last meeting was to study using taller trees instead of canopy trees. And I just wanted to say that the reason we are using the canopy trees is to help with the scale and the stepping down of the scale with the historic resource. However, I did slip in a taller tree here behind the facade of the historic resource, and that would be something like a sweet shade. So we do have some height there, but I feel it's important to have the massing of those trees that are at the front of the resource help step down the massing towards that resource. Another comment was made about creating some open space and courtyards, that sort of thing. We do have some more open space here at the front of the project, a pretty generous depth there. We also have open space in front of the building, and want to just point out that that's a very small percentage of the overall frontage. On the street, we are proposing to add one king palm, or per the Urban Forest Superintendent's recommendation, but these are existing king palms that march up and down Chapala Street. In this pocket planter here that directly aligns with the planter of the adjacent building, the 531 building, they have 4 or 5 palms, king palms in there. So I was thinking of just adding either a king palm or a lower feather type palm, something in there just to sort of complement that. You don't see really outside from the first floor, so it's more about what's happening up on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The back alley, you told us to eliminate the battered raised planters, so we did that, and we have some twisted junipers. Excuse me, twisted junipers in the planter, along with some shrubs, and first floor also. We're thinking of using a permeable red brick for the paving for both the driveway and the walkways that come into the building, and the driveways and trash at the rear of the building. This planter here is fairly large. This planter here is fairly large. Here's where we get kind of pinched, and so that's why I want to use that permeable paving to help sustain this proposed canopy tree. Going up onto the second floor, really just, you're focusing in on this sort of podium plaza, and just wanted to draw your attention to something I did years ago on Rinconada. All of that landscape that you see in that photograph is above, you could put it down, Mr. Mahan, please, is all above a parking lot. And what we did is we laid flagstone down and then filled around it with gravel. I'm proposing to do the same thing with this podium. Of course, it's all over parking. And so putting down a flagstone patio walkway circulation, and then hopefully we could do a green roof type solution where you see the green strips here and plant low ground cover if we can get the structural to work with a 6 or 8 inch depth. And we've had that conversation, so we're pretty positive we can do that. This is a raised planter and it's a shade garden because this is underneath the 3rd story unit. There's a dapple of sunlight coming through here, and we can drop this planter down into the parking garage so we can sustain an olive tree in that location, and then again a green roof type solution over here. So the 531 building, looking out across this plaza or this courtyard, has a fairly attractive palette happening. It's not just all paved or paving with smattering of pots and that sort of thing. We're really trying to make this feel like it's on the ground and like it's Mother Earth. And then I am just thinking about maybe a fire pit with some seating here, away from the residents over here, trying keeping the activity of any sort away from them. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Very nice presentation. Nice drawings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open up public comment now. And I've got quite a few slips. I'm going to ask everyone to limit themselves to 2 minutes. And if somebody that's before you has said exactly what you want to say or almost what you want to say, then just say I agree with the former speaker, and so that we can move the meeting along. I'm going to, I recognize that Carolyn Vassallo has ceded her time to Tony Vassallo, so will you come up first?
Tony?
Yeah, you're right. You can sit here.
You have to come and sit here and speak right into the microphone.
Yes, I'm Tony Vassallo. My wife and I own the property at 514 and a half Brinkerhoff. And in terms of addressing the points that were made at the last hearing, it looks like the architect did address many of those points. However, I'd like, after looking at the site plan here, the new one, I'd like to point out that the massing of the building really is on the alley now and hangs right over Brinkerhoff, the properties on Brinkerhoff. I guess I'm asking, is there any way that the ingress-egress driveway on the alley can be eliminated? Because that's going to be a nightmare of cars in and out all of the time, since this is a hotel use and not strictly a residential use. There's going to be activity on that alley constantly that's going to impact Brinkerhoff livability. So I would ask if that's a possibility. And the second thing is, since you've massed all the buildings on the alley, I think that's a 3-story. Is that a 3-story elevation on the back?
That's correct.
So you've got a 3-story elevation adjacent to essentially 1-story cottages. That kind of scale seems to be the main problem that Brinkerhoff has faced with buildings being built around it. They're all 3 stories or more in height, and Brinkerhoff, by virtue of being a historic district, is relegated to the existing scale that it is. I mean, that's the beauty of Brinkerhoff, is its scale. It's turn of the last century scale. It's 1-story and 2-story. And to pop up another 3-story building and shadow lines on a 1-story seems to be incompatible with the neighborhood in a big way, along with the traffic that would be generated out of that driveway ingress egress off the alley. The last point I would make is there a way to eliminate balconies, which would be at an angle looking right into our property's bedroom windows? I believe there were 2 or 3 patios on the off the alley. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if those are necessary, because they would be gathering spots, and again, another impact on Brinkerhoff. I thought a lot about this project, and I was thinking that what a great project for the Funk Zone. It seems like a use that would fit perfectly in the Funk Zone, but I'm not so certain that it's compatible with the kinds of structure of Merit on the south, and Leon's building on the north, and you got our whole Brinkerhoff Historic District on the west. Don't know if that's a consideration here or not.
Thank you.
I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Kellum DeForest will be next, and following that will be Elizabeth Riley Olson. Kellum?
Has any consideration been given to having this building not be possibly Victorian in design, that would blend in with the historic resources of Brinkerhoff, and especially on the corner?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll consider that question. Okay, Elizabeth, she'll be followed by Brad Hodges? Okay, Brad, why don't you come forward so you'll be ready to come up.
In continuing the discussion about the exit onto the alley, I'm wondering if architecturally that gate could be put at an angle, forcing all outgoing traffic to go to Haley Street rather than to turn toward the daycare facility where parents often are doubled park loading or unloading children from the daycare.
Thank you. Brad? And Brad will be followed by Carl Scarmiento? Scarmiento? Yeah, Carlo. Carlo? You come? Okay, good. So,
my name is Brad Hodges. I am an owner at 531 Chapala. I have a direct view of the building at 530 Chapala. I came and went through the design review meetings of that building, but unfortunately was disappointed to find out that what eventually got built didn't look at all like what we saw in these meetings. So I'm wondering if, for example, on the front detail, if there could be more description of the finishes, how those windows are going to be finished, what are the details, things like that. Because right now, I honestly do not feel that that is an inviting entryway. I see a deep recess looking into an enclosed parking garage and a somewhat bleak front. It's brought, quite close to the street. And the way it's drawn now, yes, it could look nice, but there's nothing that says anywhere that it has to look nice. And I'd like at least some sort of a
the devil is in the
detail in
details.
the drawings.
The devil is in the details. Yeah.
And
Thank
we
you.
learned that the hard way.
Thank you. Carlo? Carlo will be followed by Leon Olson.
Carlos Sarmiento, I've been pre-warned. You've been pre-warned by them, by me. Couple things that...
you're looking at the picture?
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture. They did come in with a with a plan, and they referred, even though they were told to come back with a new plan, they kept referring back to what was previously approved. And they did make some substantial changes. But when I asked them the other day if they, it seems like all the bulk and scale has been moved to the north toward our building versus, where there's 6, 7 residents versus 1 on the Victorian. But also, if you look at the old building, the mass in the very middle of the building wasn't there. It's moved more to the front. So when I asked about moving the mass, it was also, if you're always going to refer back to the original design, there wasn't that big mass in the middle, in the smack dab middle of the original design. So yeah, you did make some substantial changes, but I still not really comfortable with that mass right in the middle, and it does affect me primarily. A couple other things I want to mention. It just seems that now that I see that the open space in the front, if you look at our building, we have a very wide open space in front of 531. We didn't want to build right up to we were told not to build right up to the sidewalk, and it is inviting. You come in, and there's a lot of space in there, about maybe 15, 20 feet of open space. That's very little open space in the front of their building. As they pointed out on the right side, very little open space. It's almost like they built the building right up to the front and made a few square feet of open space. Another point is the alley, with 17 more cars exiting and entering through the alley. I'm just wondering if there are any other road improvements or street improvements in the entire alley that may be imposed on this project. I'm not sure how far you can, what they have to do, but just driving through the alley yesterday, that road's already getting pretty beat up, and you add on 17 more cars, it's going to be even worse. And the last thing is, it's pretty interesting. I like that open space, grass and trees on that space, but we saw what happened over at the World Market. When I first saw that grass there, I'm going, I wonder how long this is going to be there. And within 2 years, it's gone. And so I think they had some problems there, not only just problems, but maybe some cost. Who knows why they took it out, but the grass over there that was approved is now gone. And so they have all this landscape up there, which is really nice, but will it still be there? Will it turn into concrete after a few years? Academy Awards?
Yep, Academy Award.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leon, you're the last speaker unless I get another blue slip.
I have some pictures I'd like to show. I wonder if I should be here.
Sure, put them right up here. Use a little pointer if you want.
All right. So I'm Leon Olson. I live at 531 Chapala. I was the developer of the 531 Chapala project. Following up on the devil is in the details subject here, we actually are quite impressed here as of late with what Mr. Nolan has done and what you've done with the landscaping. We think it's very good in these sketches. The problem that we are worried about was that this was what was presented to us for the project right across the street from us. And we came to these meetings and we said, well, this looks good, but this is what got built. You'll notice that in this picture, this part of the building is not even present. You'll notice that the details on these windows are quite follow the HLC requirements. When they got built, they didn't. These are not deep set. So we also, as we built our project at 531 Chapala, there was always concern, and ours and the HLC, that we would present our building in the best light on all sides. This is the south side of the property at the corner. These don't seem to follow what we believe the HLC requirements were for us and are for others. So I have one more picture, might as well show it. This is the elevation from State Street if you were coming there.
Coda.
So,
Coda. Coda and Vine, or Fig. I think that's Fig.
That's also true. I took the picture as I left State Street. And
Fig and Coda.
So, so we don't know how to turn these good intentions that are represented here into reality. We think the buildings on the west side of the 500 block of Chapala are following, all the way across, are following the standards of the HLC. And we see that these sketches do that. But how can they be, how can we be assured that it gets built like the intentions at this time?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair?
What?
Okay.
You want to keep
We
those?
want to keep them, yeah, we'll keep them.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Is there, excuse me for a minute, is there anyone, do you have a question of the speaker?
I have a question of sort of throwing it out. Are you? My question is how does such things occur? Because I saw this thing being built, and it was not what we had approved. At that point, of course, it's out of our hands. But I agree with you completely.
But it's there forever.
Or until the next iteration. But yeah.
Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Jury and the Commission, our process for ensuring that projects get built per the HLC's approval is you have plans, the building inspectors go out and they do a variety of inspections, and a building cannot get occupancy status to operate until the building inspectors have confirmed that the design details that you've reviewed match what was approved. And so if a building is not done per plan, if the painting of the building wasn't a color that you approved, that's done on a complaint basis. So if someone in the community sees that it wasn't done per plan, and for some reason the building inspector didn't notice that it wasn't done per plan, we would research that, and it would be an enforcement case, and there would be fees involved with that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Perhaps it would be a good idea for HLC to have some discussion with the people in the building department to ensure that instead of it has to go far in a complaint and all the other processes that start, we have a discussion at the beginning about making sure that what is approved is what is to be built. And that would be an initial discussion that could be held. And I think that would possibly save time and effort on all sides.
Absolutely. And actually, one other follow-up comment. So typically with a lot of projects that involve historic resources that are adjacent, there have been a historian or one of the design review staff will actually go out with a building inspector to see that they were done per plan as well, because it is all the details, and that's what we're looking for the most. So.
This is really not pertinent to this particular application, but it is a very, very important issue. And I've talked with the chairman of the Single Family Design Board. He also has grave concerns about the slippage between what is approved and what gets built.
Yes.
And, building inspectors are out once in a while. Contractors are working all of it every day. And I think we need to discuss this, but I don't want to burden this particular project with that particular
Probably
issue.
the best thing to do is to ask staff to schedule a discussion at our next meeting, or our first meeting in
We should have the director
February.
here. We should have the director here to,
We can have a discussion on it. Yes.
It would be good in February.
thank you.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
This is always public.
Yeah.
Everything we do is in public. We're not like the Senate.
Mr. Chair.
So just addressing the audience,
I'm
everything
going
will be
to
posted on an agenda.
ask if the commission has any questions.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Drury?
How big are the apartments in square footage, the two apartments?
Oh, the apartments, I believe, the total square footage, I think it's under 1,400 square feet. So they
Each?
total.
Total? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I think yes. No, they're very small 2 bedrooms.
7 and 7, yeah, 14 total. 14.
Thank you. And Mr. Suding, that little pocket where the palm trees would go between the two buildings, is there enough light and air to?
Yeah, Mr. Jury, Commissioner Jury, there is, because after you get to the first floor, the second and third floor are stepped way back, at least 25 to 30 feet. So you are getting that southern exposure.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr.
No
Lim?
questions.
Commissioner Arias?
Have you done any consideration of reducing the massing of the buildings so that they don't breathe down into the Brinkerhoff areas? You've got balconies, you've got things like this. It is a
Well-
historic district.
This is true, but going back to let's go back to the alley elevation right here.
Sheet A 1.3.
Sheet A 1.3. So basically, I mean, the closest portion to the alley is basically they're made up of 1- and 2-story elements. The 3rd story is set back, and it is comparable to what was where we were before on the setback on that. What we have done is we've reduced the overall height,
Yeah,
you know,
I
by
understand.
the reduction of the slope of the roof, et cetera, right there.
And Keith also point out that the balconies are really enclosed. It's almost just like punctuation or piercing through, so it's not like a railing. I thought I turned it on, sorry.
Mr. Suding, please turn on your mic.
Their penetrations are fenestration through, so it reads almost as a non-balcony. It's
You
not
mean
like
a
it's
Juliet balcony?
No.
Not
No,
even that?
No.
They're enclosed.
They're
Semi-enclosed
okay.
balcony.
They'll read as
Thank you.
enclosed. Yes.
Will those be glazed or open?
Open.
It's a combination. You can see that there are some that are glazed here, and then these 2 are open, right here. These are the only 2 open air at this point.
Commissioner House?
No questions.
Okay, do we have comments then?
Mr. Chair?
I have a question before we go on to comments, and that is, do we really need the exit onto the alley? You don't have that many stalls in here that they couldn't all exit out the front.
Into the microphone.
Well, if you're answering my question.
Yeah, so I was just going to say with folks who are coming for short term, the majority who like to stay downtown don't come with a car. So even though we have 17 spaces and it's actually would be less traffic than if we were dealing with a typical long-term situation.
So does that mean you could close this off?
Sorry, that? As far as I'm just talking about traffic, on the alley there.
Could be closed off.
The only problem with closing this off is it does not provide a turnaround space if every space is taken. That's the only problem. It's gated, and it would be on a delayed egress.
Okay, I think that answers my question.
But it is egress only.
Yes.
You understand.
Egress
Yeah,
only.
Egress
outbound
only.
only.
I mean, I'm sure that 90% plus of the time, people are going to go, they're going to park here, and they're going to back out, and they're going to go this way. They're not going to want to go through the alley.
Pam, comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair? It seems, I'm not sure how much of a problem the open balconies are. I know you've addressed that they were kind of, we sort of looked at them as big party areas because people would be out there, and the people on the probably sleep in the back part of their houses on Brinkerhoff. I would assume that's where the bedrooms are, would be heavily impacted. It seems to me like you've addressed that problem. Do you think that it's adequate?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I think that this, the good faith you've exhibited in redrawing this and lowering the apparent mass bulk and scale is, for me in many ways, greatly appreciated. It's a much more attractive project than it was before. And I like the fact that you've stepped down from the corner building and down toward the, is it the Queen Anne? Is that what, the Victorian building? I find at least the street facade to be very attractive. And I would support it as presented.
Thank you. Are you skipping or are you?
No, I've got comments.
Comments then.
Can staff put up the south elevation of the Andalusia building? You said you had a photograph of it. I want to turn my speaker around.
That's a start.
What a concept.
I'm going to,
You're good.
I'm going to wander a little bit in my comments. Thank you. I did watch all of the prior meeting and video last night, and I got a whole page of concerns.
Double spaced.
And let me tell you, you have answered every concern I had. This is really, to me, a successful concept, and I want to stress it's a concept in that we're going to see a lot more detail, and we're going to talk about window depth, and we're going to talk about the color of tile, and we're going to talk about yada, yada, yada down the road. And you're all welcome to come. But as a concept, a planning concept, he has addressed almost every comment that I made to myself last night. And I really do appreciate that. Some people are concerned about, the people on Brinkerhoff are concerned about what's happening to them as a function of development on Chapala Street. And when I appeared before the City Council to talk about whether or not they would appoint me to this position, I commented that there are places in our city, in the historic district, that are going to develop more intensely than other places. And I want to make sure that those intense developments are done well. And I also want to point out that I am not going to be really anxious to see a small single-family neighborhood all of a sudden have a 3 or 4 story building pop up on it. And we've got that on our agenda tonight later, and it concerns me. I think that Chapala Street, we should expect that what we're seeing here is going to happen elsewhere on Chapala Street. They're not going to get rid of the Queen Anne probably, but you are fortunate in that you have an alley separating you from what's happening on Chapala Street to Brinkerhoff. And that is a significant element of protection, I believe. And I think we really should be happy about that and wish we had it further up and down Chapala Street, probably. I don't know if Mr. Drury was commenting about the need for enclosed balconies. I don't know that you need to enclose the balconies to the extent that you have. I don't, the neighbors may disagree with me, but I don't think that those balconies are going to get used in the manner you think they are.
Will this help? The photo that you...
I wanted to see the side that is adjoining this building, which was, I call it the south side.
The south elevation.
Yeah, I have actually a better one on my iPad, but I'm not allowed to use that. When I saw what the prior plan was and knew what the adjoining building was and the beauty of it, I was really concerned. But I, from the standpoint of the concept and the planning that we see in this building before us, I think everybody is going to benefit. I think the people that are in 517 are really going to be happy to have that adjoining them. And I think that those people there are going to get used to what 517 is like when it gets finished and developed and landscaped, so on and so forth. So I really, I think we have to understand that Chapala Street is going to be developed up and down much more intensely than it is now. Across the street, the old C&H Chevrolet, is that across the street or is that up a block?
Across up.
Yeah. C&H Chevrolet is going to get bought and torn down, and it's going to be a 3-story building. I mean, we simply know that is where the city council, the planning commission want to send us as a city. So we've got to make sure we get the best thing we possibly can. And I think that the concept here is going in that direction. It's going in that direction quite well. I think there are 2 things that could happen that would help answer some of the questions that the neighbors on Brinkerhoff have. And that is several sections through the property from Chapala Street, the other side of Chapala Street probably, all the way through the alley and through the buildings on Brinkerhoff. If you can get the size of those buildings and positions, they will then see, in section at least, how you relate to them. Now, all they see is a 2-dimensional building. unfortunately, you can't get on to their, well, you probably could if you're using SketchUp or whatever. You could probably, I mean, we're never going to see this building in 2-dimension. You're never going to see that building in 2-dimension. Matter of fact, if you're standing on the ground, you probably will never see the red tile roof because it's falling, following your line of sight. So while you look at a 2-dimensional drawing and your hemorrhoids get bad, you are never going to see it that way. You're never going to see it that way. And also the span of your view is something that you're never going to see. So what are you saying?
I think you said it perfectly.
Okay.
I didn't hear it.
I think that, as Mr. Olson said, how do you turn good intentions into reality? And unfortunately, we have no control of that, and I don't know that we always get the city inspectors observing the same things that you and we see when a building is going up. You have a successful building because you had a great architect, you had a great builder, and you were a great client. Yeah. And that's why you had a good building. If you walked in that building and didn't like something, you probably told Mr. Shelton that we got to do something about that.
Every day.
Every day. Every day.
Okay,
and
all right. You're drifting off now.
I'm drifting off. Those are my comments. I think it's a great building in concept. I think that.
Oh boy.
I think that the only thing I would say when you come back to us is maybe have less openings on the stairs. I mean, some of this stuff, they look busy now, and you'll close some of that busyness down by making them solid. Some of it's good, but you don't have to have it all that way. And I think it'll help quiet it down a little bit. But as a concept, we'll really work you over when you come in with the details. And I think that the neighbors will help us on that issue. Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Arias?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Vena?
I have comments.
Yes.
Regarding the trees and so forth, I like what you've done over here. Within this area here, that between the two buildings, I would really like to see the palm trees, but perhaps a Kencha variety, once again. They're softer, they're richer, they really enhance everything. On the back area, where you have in the alley area, once again going to more Kencha palms to give you a variety in there and some shadow patterns against those buildings and so on, I think would be a great softening element and really a complement to the whole thing. And they can take the nature of the constriction here. So you can add more of them or have some variety so there's some interplay there. And I think they'll have it.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Vena a question?
Yes.
Would you say that on the alley side, espalierring vines on some portion of that wall would be a benefit?
Depending on the vine.
Yeah.
Yes, but not espalierring, but depending on the vine to possibly soften some of the flat areas.
I would agree.
But not an aggressive vine.
I would agree. Yeah. It would. I think the neighbors would appreciate that as well.
No,
the sun won't be as intense a reflection, so on and so forth.
Okay. Commissioner House?
Okay, going back in time, last time I was on the Historic Landmarks Commission, I remember reviewing the Shelton Building at 531, and I would say I was remiss in not really visiting the site and evaluating the impact that was going to have on Brinkerhoff. And I regret that. And subsequently, the first building for this site by Mr. Pikert came, and that was a long, bloody struggle. And I've always regretted that somebody didn't have the foresight a long time ago, perhaps when Brinkerhoff District was landmarked, that there wasn't consideration given to an overlay district on that block of Chapala that mandated like a 2-story maximum to buildings. Because I think that I walked Brinkerhoff on both sides today and the alley, and I'm really sad to say that 531 and now this building really have a deleterious impact on Brinkerhoff, because it used to be that, yes, you glimpse the mountains between houses, and now you glimpse a 3-story building between each. I agree that Chapala is a C2 district. It is a large corridor, and that's the kind of building you would expect to have there. I wish sometime in history, a long time ago, somebody had kind of capped building heights to preserve the character of Brinkerhoff. That hasn't happened. So considering that, I would say I agree with the comments that have been made that this building has come a long way. It's far better than any of the other proposals I've seen come before. So I wish it weren't being built, but I don't have that option to say that. So I think it's very well done. I would echo Mr. Lenvick's comment about the railings. That was one thing that my eye caught too, that all those layers of railings gets to be like a moire pattern. And you know, at least on that first podium level, solid masonry or perforated masonry, something like that. So there just aren't all these lines that get busy. But thank you for the great job you've done on moving this forward.
Thank you. To answer Kellum's question about a Victorian building here, and because next door is a historic Victorian, in El Pueblo Viejo, Spanish. My mic is on?
It's actually sitting on your lap.
What?
How many phones do you have?
Oh, this is the problem here.
There we go.
We heard your stomach growling.
There we go. Can you hear that now? Yeah. Yeah, you know, in El Pueblo Viejo, Spanish colonial or adobe or Monterey is mandated. If something happened on the Victorian property, it would be Victorian, but not next door. So, I'm hearing very positive comments about this. I would
Mr. Chair.
I would go along with those comments. I remember what we saw the last time, and your changes to your elevations here are very good. It really works a lot better now. So. And I certainly agree with the getting away with the iron, so much iron. I think a stepped railing would be very nice there. The alley does give a substantial setback from the Brinkerhoff to the 3-story C2 zone that you wished didn't happen, and. I agree with Mr. Lenvick that this is the direction that development is going to go on Chapala Street. So we're here at comments only, and I think the comments were very positive.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Commissioner Arias, and then myself.
Commissioner Arias?
First of all, I think working with the neighborhood members that you have done is very important. And I would ask you to continue to look at them. I'm sorry, I was standing, I was getting stiff. I would also like you to look very carefully at the Brinkerhoff area again and see if there's any way that you can soften the impacts. Brinkerhoff is very special, and some of us were involved in getting it established. So I think you've come a long ways, but looking at the exit on the alley is another thing that I think should be looked at very carefully. And I like the landscaping plan. I think the corner is done really nice. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I have two comments. One, I can't let this go. The poetry of Mr. Suding's Dapple of Sunlight, I think that should be noted. And also to address the concerns of the building across the street from your project, I think that really needs to be. I'm really glad this came up because I drive by it every day just about, and I've wondered what the heck went wrong. And now I know details are what went wrong. Those windows are bad, and we need to be pretty much more vigilant in the future.
I would say that building is what motivated me to get back on HLC. There
you go.
It'd be interesting to go back and look at the drawings and see what we really approved, the deep set windows, and if they just didn't get built. But I don't think we want to get into that at this particular
Well,
stage.
we've already asked the staff to, not next week, next time, but the week after.
I think the comments that we want to send on to the Planning Commission is that we find this acceptable and certainly an improvement from what we saw the first time. And
Mr. Chair, if you want to send this to Planning Commission at this point, you need to go through the project compatibility criteria and state specific reasons why it's meeting that criteria. So.
For compatibility?
Yeah, which is on the wall right
I can't see those from here.
I got them memorized.
Do you want? Sure, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, make a motion and make those findings.
For a project compatibility analysis, it fully complies with all applicable city charter municipal code requirements, and its design is consistent with design guidelines applicable to the location of the project. It's compatible with the architectural character of city and neighborhood. It's appropriate in mass, size, bulk, height, and scale. Appropriate for its location and its neighborhood on the Chapala elevation in any case. It's some of these are hard to agree with. It's sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. The design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent federal, state, or city landmarks or other nearby designated historic resources, including city structures of merit, sites, or natural features. I can't make a finding of number 5, public views of the ocean and mountains. The design, it's
not pertinent.
It's not pertinent, thank you. The use of the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Apologize. So, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Jury, if you gave a number of comments, all of you, in regards to that, and I think they more than explained why you feel like it meets the criteria, but if you can just go through those comments again so that it's in the motion.
So just summarize the comments.
Summarize the comments that were made by the commission.
Error or something?
Do you want to do that, Commissioner, Mr. Chair?
The comments were, I think the comments were we'd like the access to the alley to be studied further. We think that the balconies on the alley are acceptable, but they might be able to be opened up more. We think that the let's see. One of the comments that hasn't been made, but I think should be made, is that the building to the north, instead of looking down now on a very ugly parking lot, is going to be looking into a very beautiful second and third story development that I think is.
Rooftop terraces. We didn't get to talk about the rooftop terraces.
The rooftop terraces.
On the 2 apartments, there are 4th floor rooftop terraces.
We did not talk about the rooftop terraces, that's true. That the landscaping should have more variety in the trees. Vines are okay, but not what we use. What?
Not aggressive.
Yeah, not aggressive. The rooftop terraces, we did not address the rooftop terraces, and I don't know that the commission is concerned about that or not.
Mr. Chair?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair.
I am looking on sheet A 1.6, the perspective from the 3rd floor master bedroom. And I would really question the necessity of having a balcony up on top of that roof. It just, well, I would like some justification for why that is necessary. And
which is right here?
Yeah, right in the middle there.
Mr. Chair.
Is it required open space?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
It's required open space.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking it might be.
Mr. Chair.
Let's wait till
that might be a place that it'd be more appropriate to have
solid
perforated masonry or solid masonry,
solid
because
balconies.
people have stuff up there and you just don't want to necessarily see that.
Yes, Commissioner Rios.
I will not be voting for this motion because I feel that we need to have the suggestions and the questions and the concerns that were addressed here brought back before they go to the Planning Commission. This project needs to have another hearing. And we need to send up to the Planning Commission a project that we can accept and has had some of these difficulties worked out. So I cannot make those findings.
All right. Well, we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
There is a motion and a second. If you'd like to make a substitute motion, you can, unless the rest of the commission is okay.
Okay, I'll make a substitute motion that this project be continued to another HLC meeting, the next HLC meeting, with our suggestions being incorporated or for discussion.
We have a second to that motion? The motion dies for lack of a second. I'm going to call the question on the, yes?
I have one comment. I don't agree with your comment regarding further studying of the exit to the alley. Alleys are made to be used, and I don't think anybody's going to be, I think very few people, if any, are going to use that alley from this building. And I
agree with that.
So I don't know that, you know.
But we could study it.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, I said to study it.
Let's have a more definitive description on what the delay system is for letting cars out of there, and the signage that tells them, you know, if you're going to go out this way, you're going to have to wait a minute. Okay? Will that be all right?
Yes, fine.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, 1 no.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to compliment Mr. Olson for his vigilance. If it wasn't for the public bringing these things to our attention, we would not be aware of what has taken place.
Absolutely, that's absolutely true. Santa Barbara is beautiful because the public is vigilant, and we always thank you for your input.
And all of the public
It's
speakers
also
today.
beautiful because of the efforts of landmarks and ABR and planning commission.
And the support of the city council.
And support of city council.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 6,
It's
which
great
is
to see
24
you,
West
really.
Gutierrez Street.
I will.
Okay, because I'm Lynn Robinson. I used to be married to Scott Robinson.
Really?
Yeah.
We might as well finish this
The box
off.
with you. Miss you. Miss you. I did something terrible. I suggested that
All right,
you would be
come on, you
a
guys.
person to come join.
24 West Gutierrez Street.
I've been prohibited from joining any boards, commissions,
Okay. I can understand that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going.
Thank you.
Is this the extra from last time? No, that's Diana. That's one of my extras. Extra, was there an extra reduced?
Do we have?
I probably do have one. Oh, wait.
Can we take an action on this?
No.
Just comment. This is still only
This is
comments only. Okay, this is the third review, concept only. This project requires review by the staff hearing officer for a tentative subdivision map, and the project was last reviewed October 18th. This is a proposal to remove, involves the relocation and salvage of historic materials and demolition of existing one-story cottage, one-story house, one-story cottage, attached 3-car garage. The construction of the new 3-story mixed-use building contains 2 residential condos, and the 2 condos will be located on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The 1st floor has parking. Each unit will contain 3 bedrooms, and unit size will range from 3,500 to 3,400 square feet. You people give your name for the record, please.
Yes, Ryan Jeffrey, the applicant.
Thank you.
Rick Jeffrey, applicant.
Okay, welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let's see, do we have some minutes on this here?
Let me, for the public record, I reviewed, I think it was 2 video meetings on this project, and last night, as well as the minutes, so I will participate.
Thank you. This was our motion at our last meeting. The commission is interested in hearing about the preservation efforts of the existing buildings, either relocation or salvage. The next presentation should include a legible 3D model of the building from a pedestrian point of view, up the street and down the street. The west elevation needs considerably more interest, the west elevation. The west elevation would be the one facing Chapala Street, I believe.
Yes.
The tower needs to be reduced in volume. The southeast elevation needs some simplification. On the northeast elevation, simplify the building forms so that they are more in balance between vertical and horizontal elements. Okay, thank you. Give us a brief
Yes, so we
presentation.
try to address all the comments that were made at our last review. I'd like to start with the efforts for the relocation. I placed ads on Craigslist as well as a paid advertisement in the Santa Barbara Independent. I received several calls and emails and have been in contact with some and have a list of others. So when the time comes, we have interested parties in relocating. Some have shared that they have vacant lots, one up on East Camino Cielo, a couple others of interest. So that process is started, and I believe that that outlet is a good avenue to advertise for the relocation of the building, which we would happily have be the first priority as well. So that's an update on the efforts as far as that's concerned.
Thank you.
Regarding the comments to the elevations and to the massing study, we can get in here. So I believe it was essentially that they were all kind of combined onto 1 or 2 sheets, so we've separated them out per sheet for each vantage point.
You have a bigger elevation than that? I mean, these are the perspectives.
Yeah, this is the massing. This is not the elevations. These are the street views that were mentioned in the comment from last time. So if you can look here where it states 1, this Google Maps reference is essentially a legend for what view you're seeing here. So this would be from a pedestrian on the State Street, Gutierrez corner, looking down Gutierrez Street. You can see that our building is set back further than the Chapala one, which is across the street from Chapala.
This is a view from 2 right here.
This is a view from 2, so the public parking lot that is across and towards State Street.
Right. This is the Chapala Lofts here.
Correct, yeah, directly across the street.
This is 3 from the corner over here.
So from the opposite side, Chapala looking back towards State Street. And number 4 is as if you're in front of the commercial spaces in Chapala 1,
over this building,
looking towards that west elevation, which was the main elevation of concern during our last review. So essentially, the existing structures blocked the elevation except for the top bit of the second level and the third level. I think we can skip to the elevations from here. guys want to have larger printouts for color. I don't know why they turned out so yellow at the printer. I apologize. So on the front elevation, I believe the simplification of the balcony elements were requested, so we've made those adjustments. On this particular elevation, there were comments that there's kind of too much busyness with horizontal and vertical elements, so we removed the vertical chimney element to allow it to flow more horizontally. I don't believe there were comments on this rear elevation. On the west to southwest elevation, adding detail in this smaller rear section, simplifying this balcony area from the columns that previously existed, and then adding the detail of the mosaic on the tower, as well as decreasing the tower height and the tower width to scale down the bulk of the tower from that perspective.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Public comment, we have no public comment on this one. Are you filling out something, Kellum? Hurry up. Get up closer to the speaker, Kellum.
Okay, excuse me. And it isn't on, which will help. What I thought was being asked for was a model, or at least three-dimensional rendering, so we could see what this proposed building is going to look like from Terrace Street and from Chapala Street, and also from State Street, and how it fits into the space. And those little pictures or these straight-on renderings don't meet that criteria. So I'm still concerned about the Chapala, the west elevation. Doesn't seem to quite fit. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that when our minutes say a legible 3D model, that means either a perspective drawings or a model, but I don't think we specifically specified a cardboard model. We didn't do that.
We did not.
Thank you. Okay.
Where are the 3D?
Well, the 3D are the perspectives.
They've been on the board.
They're perspective drawing. 3D perspective drawings is what we've gotten. The commission can ask for a cardboard model if they choose, or story poles, or we have a lot of options, but let's see where the commission wants to go. Do we have questions here? I'm going to start with Commissioner House this time.
I don't know that I have any questions. Well, I guess I would ask, I see differences between the 3D renderings and Mr. Lenny's beautiful renderings, and I'm wondering whether or not the 3D elevations represent the direction you're going more, or you will be more faithful to Mr. Lenny's elevations.
The rendered elevations for Mr. Lenny will be the exterior aesthetic of the building. The 3D model is just the input from the Revit program. So,
Okay.
The exterior aesthetic will be based on the watercolored
I mean,
renderings
for
that we
instance,
have.
to cite a specific example, in the west elevation at the top of the stair tower, there's an arched opening which is entirely different proportions than what shows in.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that the final drawings will will follow
Reflect,
these
Yes.
colored renderings by Henry.
That's it for questions.
And these are they. These are the
Okay.
color, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Vena?
I have no comments at this time.
Commissioner Arias?
No comments at this time.
Commissioner Lindick?
I have no questions, I have comments.
Okay, well, we'll get to those in a minute.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think we have no questions.
I have comments.
Well, let's hear your comments and make them poetic.
Well, I could say dapple of sunlight, but that's not appropriate in this case. So I'm looking at these four of Henry Lenny's, and it seems like the most successful are the northwest and southeast elevations because they're a little more concentrated. And it seems like the northeast elevation is okay, but the southwest elevation, which includes really the whole height of the tower, it seems a little pedestrian somehow. It seems like it needs a little bit of poetry. How's that, Mr. Commissioner Mahan? I love the detail in the arch. Is that going to be stained glass? There's something
Mosaic tile.
A mosaic tile. But I think that kind of detail is sort of lacking in the rest of this particular, the southwest elevation, and it's more apparent. I think it's more successful in the concentrated northwest elevation because things are kind of next to one another. But in the southwest elevation, it seems a little lacking. Like there's something else that can be added just for a little bit of pizzazz, visual pizzazz. I think that the dimensions of the building is really lovely. I think that probably the same thing could be said about the two biggest elevations, the northeast and southwest, I think could use a little bit of pizzazz or poetry, if you will, and may be that the length of those both those elevations just need to be. I'm not an architect. I'm a landscape painter, and I do my best at that. But I think there's something maybe the hanging lamps, maybe an expansion, maybe a mirador on the northeast elevation where those three big windows are below the tower. Anyway, something of that order that kind of gives it a little bit of flair. I know that they're going to be.
Is the northeast the rear elevation that abuts the back of the property?
Or is more charm?
Charm, that's it. Yeah, it's the charm. It's something like that could be. Because I'm not pointing on screen, but
onto this rear elevation.
Well, I think
you're talking about these big ones here, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm talking about the northeast, and then the
northeast.
The southwest elevation and the northeast elevation are opposite sides. They're the two longest elevations, right? And I think that's a great playground for an architect. I think that you could sort of let fancy fly a little bit because, particularly the one coming from, it would be the northeast elevation. When you're coming on Gutierrez off of State Street, you will see a good bit of that, right? Because it's just the cleaners and there's just ablets, right? And then this particular
correct
elevation. So I think there's an opportunity there to add some charm, if you will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lendick?
Yes, I'm one of the things, before I get to the comments about the project, one of the things that I fear is that the beauty of Henry Lenny's exterior elevations will not be appreciated by the architect that does the construction drawings. I have seen this happen before. We get a beautiful drawings, we show shadows which represent depth of windows, and Henry's not going to do the construction drawings.
He is collaborating with that architect.
Collaborating, but he came in to save the project. I mean, or to help the project.
He came in to help the project,
Yeah.
and he'll be providing all the construction details and
I'm
such.
real concerned about that because that's where sometimes the project that gets built does not represent the project that we saw.
We do review and approve the working drawings.
Now, the other thing that concerns me is that our requirements for review are that we see the adjoining buildings in plan and elevation. And nowheres here do we see the adjoining buildings in really sufficient plan or elevation. I would have expected to see what Ablitz looks like sitting back here and what this stuff over here looks like. This building is shown to us in isolation. A very beautiful building, but it doesn't tell me how it relates on the street frontage. And that concerns me. I mean, these are good massing studies, and we see how your building masses against other buildings, but it doesn't tell us the character. And I think that's one of the things that I see inhibits our ability to really constructively review and comment on a project. Both of the projects that we saw today that could have been controversial had that information of the adjoining projects. The other thing that concerns me is the entrance to your garage. Go to the floor plan, if you might.
You want the plan?
Yeah, I want the plan. What we have here is the entry right at the street, the face frontage, and a long driveway now before you get back to the parking area. And I understand why this is here, why it's at that location as opposed to back, and that's because of the second floor. Huge exterior deck that is being supported by that. And both of the other projects that we saw today had the entry to the garage way back off the street. Way back off the street. And that is, and I had one drawing laying on the floor here that I gave back to you, but they both respected the street. And our guidelines talk about, these are out of order here, but our guidelines talk about subterranean parking garages with attention to the perceptibility of vehicle entrance. They want us to avoid the problem of that. And I think that this really has to be studied, and you've got to move that hole, that tunnel, back away from the front of the building.
There's a 10-foot setback from.
What you have is you have the entry to the garage right there.
Right, but there's a 10-foot setback.
I understand that. I understand that. But nevertheless, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a garage. Maybe it's a door. Actually, I don't have no idea. I guess it's a garage door, right there, on the frontage of the building, pedestrian scale, pedestrian frontage. So I have a real problem with that. And as I say, one of the evaluation tools is identified in our guidelines is the applicants show neighboring buildings and important features on adjacent sites, and that never was done.
Okay. Good comment. Commissioner Arias?
What?
Do you have any questions?
No, I said I had no questions.
Questions?
Comments?
Comments? Are we?
We're comments. We're in comments.
We're in comments. Well, wait a minute. You have a comment?
No, I am concerned about its neighborhood compatibility. That's one of the things that's bothering me a bit.
Okay. Commissioner Vena?
I have a couple of them. Well, I'm looking at the southwest elevation, and it looks rather monastery-like to me. I'd like to see maybe the column, maybe the tower might have a step in or something to take that massive verticality off of it a little bit. And that, to me, is something that you can see from the distance, because all the buildings to the beyond that, I believe, are fairly low profile. So this is a fairly massive thing, unless I'm not looking at the right thing. And then in addition to that, no one seems to pay attention to the walls or give them any character, any detail, or anything like that. They're just walls, are either painted or they're stained or just capped, and that's the extent of the imagination. There's a lot more that can be done with walls, and if we're going to be looking at walls, yes?
There's no walls there. That's the parking garage. That's the parking garage.
And this one?
Same.
But they look like walls. And from the Ablett side, you're going to see some kind of a wall.
In some places, yeah, zero in some places.
But more attention should be paid to them. Thank you.
Commissioner House?
Well, I would say that Commissioner Lenvik brings up a very good point, which nobody has brought up to this point, and I would agree that that deck on the second floor is far larger than it needs to be for one residential unit, and that if I look at the southeast elevation on A2.04, there seems to be an indication of some sort of garage door there, which I don't see on the floor plans. But that's especially concerning. Even with the 10-foot setback, a car is not able to fully pull off of the sidewalk if they're waiting for that door to open and close. So I think you take care of both those issues if you find a way to just recess that opening to the garage back another 10 feet, basically, to the supports of the third floor deck. And I think that helps it architecturally from the street frontage, so there isn't a vehicle opening right next to all this lovely architecture. On the southwest elevation, that stair tower is still confounding. It's certainly a big improvement from the last time where there was that big projection as you were trying to maintain storage up there. You know, it's all about context, and if this were surrounded by some different buildings of similar mass, then this might not be such a problem, and eventually something else may get built there and the problem will go away. But, you know, I look in the massing model and I do have concern about how that is just looming, and I don't know that just adorning it is the solution, but I think it's better than it was before. I'm still not convinced. I would also echo Mr. Lenvik's point that about the interpretation of Mr. Lenny's elevations. I see you have notations and heights on here, which would kind of suggest that those are going to be in the plan and the construction documents, and you should have computer-drawn elevations so we really understand how those got interpreted, and we have the opportunity to spot, oh, that's not working out, because there's always the reality of working out the construction details, which aren't necessarily considered when he did these beautiful elevations. So I don't think we want to be approving a set of drawings that relies on these exclusively as the elevations. They need to be computer drawn, so we know that they've been properly interpreted. Thanks.
There is a 3-story building there, maybe it's 4 stories that have been approved behind this.
Yeah, yeah, we're familiar with that. It's a 3.5-story, yeah.
Yeah.
The my recollection is that originally at least the street elevation, the Gutierrez Street elevation, was much more detailed and elaborate in terms of the railings and all that
Yes,
stuff.
it was
And
requested to be
commission
reduced.
The commission was saying too much
Yeah, it
filigree.
was busy.
We want you to simplify it. There were, on this elevation here, the northeast, there were a lot of vertical lines, and we were saying simplify it, and now I'm hearing the commission say, well, it's too simple, you know, we need to go back to...
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the garage door at the...
I think that well, first of all, we're pleased that you're pursuing the relocation of the existing house, and we hope that you're successful with that. So That's a good comment. I think showing the adjacent buildings is going to be very important. Ablitz is quite a nice, as I recall, that's a fairly nice Spanish colonial revival building. And we need to see that in terms of its, I think this garage over here is pretty mundane. But I think it's important to get those things in. So let's do that when you come back. I agree that moving this garage door or this entry to the garage back and reducing the size of that huge deck is an important thing. The comment that there should be at least 20 feet for a car to pull in there in case the gates are closed or whatever it is, that would certainly be an appropriate improvement.
For that to occur, the entire building would have to move, and then the step back, there would be no step back between level and 3.
You got to deal with the deck that is that size.
This one is way back, isn't it? This one is way back here.
5 feet.
This is just this.
But it all lines to the front here. So if we chunk it here back 10 feet, which I think is what you're saying, now we have an L-shaped staggered balcony on level 2. I just don't know that that's going to be acceptable to you guys elevation-wise. We can certainly have no door and set the door back. If you refer to these drawings here, we can have this open. We wanted it somewhat securitized for, folks wanting to come in, graffiti and sleep inside and such, but there is a...
I think what we're...
There have been a number of buildings built in the last, and approved in the last couple of years that have made an effort to get that garage opening back.
I mean, this is the extent of that deck now, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I mean, what we're talking about is cutting it back, or maybe doing something like that. I think you should study that, and I think it's that.
I think Henry can solve that problem.
I think it can be acceptable to you, and I think it would be an improvement to the.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
definitely.
I would wonder if Transportation has reviewed these plans yet?
Yeah, the angle of vision and all of that, they have not reviewed, but it's per code based on the 45 degrees and everything and the setback, so.
With the nose of the car, to the property line, then they're 10 foot out, so they got view, yeah.
There's a question there's a question. I'm on, I think. Hello?
Hello?
Sounds like I'm on. There was a question about neighborhood compatibility, and I think that will be resolved when we see these adjacent buildings. You might put in the what I would refer to as the Cornell building, which is behind you. That's a 3.5-story building. You might
yes, it's certainly in the massing here that shows that it towers over ours.
And also, if you were to do a section through your property and through the street, there's your property, and there's a curb line, and there's a sidewalk, and there's now all of a sudden we know that you're fitting in.
Shafala Lofts is the biggest 3-story building in town.
All of a sudden you're not that big a building anymore.
No, I know that we're not. I mean, we all know that we're not.
But you've got to explain it to us by way of drawings. That's the problem. And the same for going other directions. Hey, I'm a small building, and your only difference is you got a streetscape, which is your building, and then you got these little buildings here, and nothing here, of course.
The one comment that I wanted to make, I think that this tower is it seems too massive, and one of the ways to soften this would be to put coins coins on it, and maybe even you get a little bit of an eight-sided roof coming up. I think it would add some charm to this thing to have some coins, if you can work that into the stair.
I'm happy to investigate that. I know that it's as small as possible per code for the stairwell, so if we can do some things on the edges
coins
to soften
will make it
I'm
look
happy
smaller,
to.
even if it's a little bit bigger.
So just plan on it.
And Mr. Chair?
What?
Plan it on stucco.
No, not plant-ons, not
Mr. Chair?
The coins like this, you know, they'd be angled.
The voice
They'd
crying.
be angled
Oh, I see what you're saying.
like that. And then your roof gets a little click in it there. It softens it, makes it more round. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to walk back a comment. The northeast elevation, to me, is pretty much there. It's the southwest elevation that needs a bit of,
Yeah.
I think, what Commissioner Mahan is talking about, and a little bit more of that poetry.
Okay, so I did make those comments. Did you get all those comments down?
If you could summarize the comments,
We appreciate the pursuit of relocation.
Got it.
We'd like to see the adjacent buildings shown on the
Yes.
elevations. We appreciate the perspective drawings, but we need to see these, those adjacent buildings in elevation. The entry garage needs to be restudied and recessed. Perhaps in maybe reducing the size of the porch up, the deck up above. So the question of neighborhood compatibility will be better understood when we have those drawings and that information. And they might study softening the tower
with coins.
Is it coin? Is chamfer?
Chamfers.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Not
that's
coin.
fine.
Not
Be
coin.
confused. Yeah.
Not coins.
Yeah,
No,
chamfers.
those are stones going up.
Right.
Chamfers. Chamfers.
That's what I was.
Yeah, chamfers. Excuse me.
So on the balcony, to explore the cut to be made at this interior column or for the entirety of the balcony?
Just for the.
What's that's 5 feet?
I think
5 feet is the most that we could go back.
From the sidewalk to the gate or whatever it is.
We would have to redesign the entirety of the building for
So
20
if we were to
feet.
if we were to push this lower balcony back, so we gain 5 feet, so now we have 15 feet, and we push the gate back 10 feet.
It might work.
Is that
It might work.
a combination of those
It
two
might
things,
work.
maybe?
And you might have a cantilever there or something.
How far back he put his entry from Trapala Street? I mean, that's the kind of thing that.
I wish that we could with the infill size of the property as well, so we have to work with what we have.
Okay.
Understand. It's just, it's,
With
I understand.
those
It hasn't been
comments,
a
I'm
comment
going to
for
entertain a motion for what kind of a continuance can we get here? 2 weeks?
Not 2 weeks. The soonest it would be is 4 weeks or an indefinite continuance. So at
4
that
weeks?
4 weeks, please.
4 week continuance.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Is there a
I'll
second?
Second.
Moved by House and seconded by Jury. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to 214 State Street.
You have to keep the box anyway.
101's closed until Monday.
What's that?
101 is closed until Monday.
214 State Street.
Monday now? Oh, my gosh.
My phone.
This is a second concept review. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. This is a proposal for a facade and interior remodeling of existing commercial building. The project includes replacing existing wooden plaster trellis structure, State Street entry patio with steel shade structure, replacing existing doors, creating a new outdoor dining window, and replacing the existing black awning with a dark red canvas awning. And let's see if we have any comments on this from your minutes here. Our motion a couple of weeks ago, or whenever it was, the arched awning shape does not work with the existing building form. The lanterns as proposed are not acceptable. Restudy to make more substantial and handcrafted. The breezeway block wall does not work. Use terracotta tile or terracotta rounds. Following an existing form from the building would probably be more successful for the replacement of the awning. Window mullions and divisions should match the existing. The heater as shown are not acceptable. They should be shielded and hidden from view. The awning material must be canvas. The commission suggests the applicant consider a rectangular sloped form for the awning to replace the existing awning at the Rebar Coffee Shop. Welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
For the record, I have reviewed the minutes and watched the video on the prior hearings, so I will be participating in this.
Very good. We'll enjoy that. Yes, yes, I do. All right, give your name for the record, please.
Hello, everybody. Kevin Moore, architect for the tenant and property owner.
Hi, my name is Ramon from Corazon Cocina. Thank you.
Okay.
Many of you might enjoy Ramon's tasty tacos over there at the public market at Corazon Cocina.
Oh, tasty tacos, well.
And the plan is for Ramon to move in here and revamp the building and carry on with what he does.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, why don't we start with the awning shape, since that's sort of the major part of this puzzle. If you recall, last time we had an arched shape awning that we felt picked up on some of the existing arches in the project already. The board felt differently and suggested that we look again at the building and try and pick up on a major move that the building is already making. So because of its presence on State Street, we felt this mass was the most important mass, at least visually at this point. And we chose to create a flat design with the draped awning within that in response. The detailing remains the same, wrought iron with finials, and we also took another look at this, at the breezeway block, and are choosing to go with this sort of style. And give you some context. So next door at Lukita, which would be just over here, this is their existing site wall at the sidewalk with their breezeway block. And so we're choosing a block that's similar and in similar proportions as well, but slightly different. The installation would be similar in a plaster wall. We have some details that we can go over that, but we've chosen to recess that and create some additional shadow lines to give it more detail. We still have our sandstone cap here. We have our new window here, and we've matched the existing window mullions and stiles. These will match. These are wood currently. These are wood. These will also be wood. So I don't know if anybody wants to take a peek at that. Then we have a revised materials board. We can send one down that way. Showing our breezeway block. This will be painted white to match the stucco. Our proposed lighting fixture that will be hanging from the center here. Our sandstone cap. And our awning color, which unfortunately you never can get it to print quite right, but that's the actual sample. There's some concerns about the appearance of this having some sort of PVC or plasticness in it, and it's definitely not.
Can I see that sample? Chance? Who's the manufacturer?
It's Sunbrella.
Sunbrella.
The heaters, what we'd like to propose is a typical Sunpack style heater in black, but because of the proximity to State Street and our desired design, there isn't really a way to hide them from view. We'd have to create some other structures there to tuck them behind. So what we're proposing is that we simply take them and wrap them in a wrought iron style cladding, essentially. And those would get similar brackets and be hung at the perimeters of these, in this location and in this location. I wanted to test this idea before we really moved forward with any further investigation of it.
Do those heaters show on your elevations?
They do not yet.
Okay.
Pass that around.
We saw it.
Yeah, we've got one of those down
We
here.
have one.
Thank you.
You have one of these?
No, it's fine.
So no other real changes other than those.
And what about for the front awning? You made some change to the front, the big awning in front.
The front awning, it was out here, yes. That's simply we're changing the fabric. It goes from that black,
On the
charcoal black
existing frame.
to that match.
But
that
is it
color.
round or is it rectangular? Is
It has a.
There was a
It's sort
photo
of
we
a
had before.
round. This isn't accurate.
On the front page, you get a better idea.
So this is an existing structure behind it, and we would just simply replace the fabric.
But I mean, this is rectangular in its-
plan.
In plan, and then it has an arched top.
And it's arched. It's
Yeah. So in the front, it's straight across, but by the back, it's arched up.
Which gives it a unique shape, and
parabolic.
yes. Let's see. The plan remains the same. No changes there.
Okay.
Elevation largely the same with the exception of the our shade structure going straight across. You see our site wall there.
This stone cap go all the way around?
It does.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Staff comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Elendick, I'm going to start with you.
I have a question. I may have missed it when I was watching the videos.
Click on.
For this. Why are you removing or not keeping the current awning structure? I mean, I just.
Why are you not what?
Why aren't you keeping the current awning system and whatever that I see here? Was there?
It is. What we
I think that was too low. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so here's a photo of it.
Yeah.
This is what was previously approved. And it's our contention that this is one of the reasons that restaurants have come and gone in this location. It creates a pretty dark and unwelcoming feel right on State Street. This is so low. I mean, I can reach up and touch this.
Okay. Oppressive.
It's
is the
oppressive,
word.
yes,
Yeah.
and dark.
Oppressive. Okay. Commissioner Arias, you have any questions?
I'm just looking at the parking. No, not questions at this time.
Commissioner Vena?
None at this time.
Commissioner House?
The current awning that's in there now, that's not retractable, is that right?
No. No,
It
it's
doesn't
fixed.
appear to be.
It's
I
fixed,
just
yeah.
wanted to confirm. Okay.
Commissioner Drury?
So, yes, the awning in the front, the one on the street, that's still going to be curved, but it's
No,
no
it's-
longer going to be that other stuff.
It's curved and at
Right.
the back and
Yeah.
rectangular at
It's
the
going to
front.
be that sunbra.
The shape will remain. We're matching the colors.
Good, thank you.
Comments? Commissioner House?
Well, I would just disagree with you about the level awning being and relating to the flat roof front facade being the correct thing to reference. It just, to me, is visually jarring to have that and then the sloping roof behind it. I think that if you did reflect that sloping roof, that pitch, it could be up higher than it is now. I think being retractable gives you that opportunity to let more light in and alleviate the dark feeling. It was suggested also last time that in lieu of a more opaque awning, material. You had some photographs of some other garden installations that had something more translucent. So that also would help.
Let's keep it simple.
Which this is. It does let light through.
This does. It's kind of hard to tell.
In daylight, it does.
Yeah. I would also say that on this sheet it says HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, which is not what this is. So this is what I would expect to see, and you've just got the wrong call out on that, because that's the stuff that's got a semi-gloss sheen to it when it's new, especially. So that flat awning is up 13 feet, and I just have a hard time visualizing that working out okay. Just feels way up there, spindly supports, not that they need to get to be bigger columns. I don't think that solves the problem. I just think that if it related to the building form, the sloping building form more, be more approvable.
The higher, if we slope this, the higher this gets up just way too high. If we unless we're in line with this existing slope.
Yeah, I don't have the plans in front of me, so I don't know if you can go up a little bit higher on the...
Just all of a sudden we're into this
Yeah.
molding and all that. It's just, it gets messy.
Yeah. Judy, can I see those plans for a sec? I don't know, as I look at this elevation here, it certainly seems like the high end of it could be higher than it is now. So, I don't know, those are my comments. I would like to comment on the breezeway block. I don't even know for a fact whether the ones at Lokita were per approval. So I would hate to say, okay, they're fine because they were at Lokita. And even if they were installed there, it doesn't set a precedent. And at the very least, I could say, I look at that and I think this doesn't seem appropriate for the historic district. I think there are other things you could use, such as some terracotta pipe sections or roof tile or something like that that is more appropriate to the district. So I'm struggling with the concrete. That's my comments.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering about the landscaping as far as that goes.
There is
that
no
to follow or
landscaping.
what?
Little landscaping right here.
Yeah, there's some existing landscaping in front, which is a mix of agave and small plants.
There's
We're looking at the parking, and it appears that there's other additional.
there's space around here.
That's all existing.
Commissioner Arias and Commissioner Vena, the parking is existing, and that's not part of this proposal.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
proposal is
All right.
only what is in the project description.
All right. And that was not a phone into here, was it?
No, that was
Okay.
Kellum.
Okay.
Commissioner Rios, you have any comments?
Well, we were talking about the landscaping.
Yeah.
We're
And that
confused.
was answered.
Yeah, it was answered. Thank you.
Commissioner Landvik?
I agree with Mr. House. I'm not sure this is the solution to a perceived problem of restaurant failure. It is a lot of things I wouldn't do, but I'm not going to get excited about it. My experience on the outside dining that I've been involved with on areas where there is higher speed traffic, which I think is starting to develop right here, has been that the noise and the exhaust creates an unacceptable environment to dine in. But that's part of going business. It's finding that out. So I don't. Oh, yeah. One comment. The sandstone cap is very thin, and I think it'd feel better if it was a little thicker.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
So it's formidable food, right?
So
empanadas?
Commissioner Drury?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Howes about the material for the
All right,
for the wall. I'd like to see something more in keeping with El Pueblo Viejo. Because I'm not sure at all about the wall Lokita was ever approved. I don't remember seeing it approved. But I disagree in terms of the awning across the outdoor seating. I think as presented, it's much more hospitable than sort of this dark cave, and it has a certain open-air market feel. You feel like you could walk in and enjoy yourself. But I would agree with the material on that at State Street and parking lot facing wall. I'd like to see something more traditional. Otherwise, I think it's as presented, but I would have
I feel that
support it.
I feel that the awning as presented is acceptable. This is very similar to what's at the Copper Coffee Pot, and I think it's about the same height. How many people can accept the awning as presented here today?
I can.
You? Okay, I think we can accept the awning. I agree that I think this breakup here, this tile is too contemporary, and it's who was the fellow that did all the screens? Architect. I can't think of his name now.
Okay, we'd be happy to come back with
Yeah,
the revised material.
with a more traditional grill. I mean, grills. There's some beautiful grills on the Unitarian Church. Some beautiful grills on the Libero Theater. Moorish grills, something like that, I think would be more appropriate. And the sandstone cap should be at least 3.5, 4 inches thick.
I'd make a motion to approve as submitted, final approval submitted.
Wait.
Heaters to
Can we take an action on this?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, you can give it project design approval, but since you have elements that you want tweaked, I would suggest you just continue it to the next agenda with project
Give it
design
project
approval
design
now.
approval with your comments.
Could we do that on consent?
The awning is acceptable. Restudy the wall, the grill, the cap should be thick. How about these? You're going to give us further study on these heaters.
Yes.
I have no problem with heaters. Heaters are heaters.
Yeah.
You know, you
And the
go up
light
and down-
fixture?
You go up and down State Street and you got heaters.
They're
and
all
it's- It's life.
And the light fixtures?
I got no problem with light fixture.
And the awning needs to be transparent material.
No, not necessarily. This is what they're proposing, so.
But it wasn't what's called out on the...
It needs to be that canvas material and not the HDPE.
We'll make sure the spec is correct.
So,
for that.
so you'll correct the spec on the canvas material, and
Is this something we could do on consent?
Yeah, I would make final approval with consent for the fenestrated block and the stone cap to be reviewed further.
okay. And is there a second?
So just clarifying, it's project design approval with the comments you've listed to return to the consent calendar with those addressed,
Yes.
right?
I would second project design approval.
Yes, we've seconded that.
Okay.
Okay, are there any further comments?
Just let us know what you're going to landscape.
We're going to want to see what the landscaping, and notice along the side here, there's quite a strip of landscaping along the side here. We need maybe a little variety.
It's that's actually on
The landscaping will come to the consent calendar.
That's actually on the adjoining property.
Oh, this is?
Yeah.
So tear it out.
But this is coming,
There might be a place for a pot somewhere in the whole scheme of things with something to soften it up.
See what you come up with.
Sure. We'll try.
You got this far.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Is that just one?
I believe so.
One opposed. So the motion carries, and this is appealable to City Council within 10 days. Thank you very much.
But it comes
Thank you
back
all.
to the consent calendar.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here on this difficult day.
Thanks to all of the commissioners for
Mr.
bearing
Chair?
with me.
You did a pretty good job.
You did a pretty darn good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are we done with the meeting? You have to announce the end of the meeting.
What's that?
You have to announce the end of the meeting.
Adjourn.
Adjourned.
We stand adjourned. as I used to
Okay.
say.
We sit adjourned right now.